my gosh, I love that. That's so good. Well, I'm glad you're better from it now.
Oh yeah, no,
my
I
gosh,
am. It's good. And I've actually, last year I did the best thing I could have done. And I went back to a sport I was really bad at as a kid, and that was swimming. And I'm still a bad swimmer. But I do it because my technique's terrible. And so I end up burning way more energy than I should. But it's good for the lungs.
Yes, yeah, that's fair.
It's good for the lungs. So it's, yeah.
Wow, okay, so since then, you've been doing...
Since then, I've been pretty well right.
Wow, thank God.
So...
You play Oztag?
Yeah, I played. Or I haven't played the last 2 seasons. So I played. It's a rolling season. So there's like a summer season and a winter season. So it's like one season finishes and then there's like a 4-week break and then the next season starts. Yeah. So it's not. It's not. So I played Oztag. I played Oztag. I played touch football. I played 5-a-side soccer, and I play ultimate frisbee.
What?
So yeah.
How do you...
Well, not all at the same time.
That's insane.
No, but I try and always have. I have, as I said, I haven't the last year, but basically much the whole way through my pre-set, I've always tried to be playing at least one team sport.
Wow,
while I'm awesome. Going. Yeah.
And you just play with...
Yeah, so actually what's been great is like it's when I was at Ryde, we had the West Tigers had a touch football comp, and the youth group from the parish entered a team, and so I played for like 2 seasons with the team, and we won our division one year, which was great. And then when I transitioned, when I came down to Miranda, initially I didn't know anybody, so I was still on a Monday. See, a lot of these comps are on Monday nights, which is perfect for me as a priest because Monday's my day off. So it's really good. So I love Monday sports. So I'd go up there and I was still playing touch, and then they switched for the hell of it to play ultimate frisbee. And ultimate frisbee, like it sounds like a joke sport, but it's not. No. Like there's a lot of running.
Yes.
A lot of running. You got to cover a lot of territory. And so played ultimate frisbee for 1 season. We got towelled up every game, but it was good. Seriously, we had all like these like Chinese university students who are just guns at the sport. Yeah. So we'd play there, and then when I actually it was a guy from my parish. He just graduated high school. He would have been about 19. He used to come to mass. He'd be there in the front pew each Saturday night. And one night he asked his mum. He goes, "Mum, do you think Father Dan would like to be on my 5-a-side soccer team?" And she goes, "Well, just go ask him." And so he did. Came up to me after mass and said, "Hey, look, we need some more players. Would you like to play?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure. Okay, I'll do that." So I hadn't played soccer since the seminary. So went and played 5-a-side soccer. And that was, that was great. And there's me who's like, I would have been like my mid-30s. And every other team member is like 19. So I'm like, I am the old man of the of the team. But that was great. So I played a few seasons. I played several seasons of 5-a-side soccer. And then I switched back to Oztag.
That is
switched
so
to Oztag,
cool.
yeah. So.
That's
It's right. In Miranda, I completely forgot. Miranda, I also had 2 seasons. That's right. No, so I started playing frisbee. Then my young adults group at Miranda got an Oztag team together. So I played 2 seasons of Oztag with them. Then when I switched to Sutherland, started playing 5-a-side soccer with the students, the graduates from De La Salle, Cronulla. And then switched to Oztag again. So
that's so cool.
So
I love that you're still playing team sports.
Yeah, love it.
That's awesome. Well, I mean, if you're ever looking for an Oztag side,
do you play for an Oztag team?
Yeah, I play on Monday nights men's and Wednesday nights mixed.
Well, beautiful.
But it's at the Fairfield comp, which is probably a bit far.
Well, I used to go from Miranda to like Eastwood to play ultimate frisbee.
Father, hey, listen. We need players for our men's comp. We're almost finished this season.
Yeah.
But next season.
Yeah.
Would you actually
potentially? Yeah, send me the details and I'll see. If it's on a Monday night, it is usually feasible.
Okay.
Yeah. Other nights of the week, no, but Monday nights are usually feasible.
Okay. Well, no pressure, but I'll actually reach out.
No, reach out. Well,
and let you know.
It'll be good.
That would be so cool.
Yeah, I'll see. It'll be a bit of a trek, but it'll be good fun.
Yeah. Sorry,
yeah, that's all right. The Shire is not close to anything, so
that's it. But yeah, because ours is like a clean, like we make sure we play in like the cleaner comps because we used to play, like my brothers used to play like Homebush and I don't know where else, and there were always like punch-ons and all that stuff, fights and all that, whatever.
Oh, okay.
And we're like, we're not here to do all of that stuff. Like, we just want to play Oztag.
Yeah.
Um,
It's only sad. It's sad when there's punch-ons in. Like I was in only ever been in one game where there was a minor punch-on.
oh, yeah.
But usually, at least down in the Shire, like they're competitive, but it's like people like, if you want to punch on in Oztag, it's like you're being a tool. What?
Yeah,
like, it's like,
honestly.
come on, it's Oztag.
Yeah.
It's not the NRL Grand Final. It's not
Exactly.
State of Origin. Like, what do you?
I know. Oh my gosh. And like, yeah, I don't know. I've heard like weird things happen around different areas.
Yeah.
But we went to Fairfield and it's the cleanest comp. Like if you abuse a ref, you're like out of the comp.
Yeah.
You know, so like they're just clean. You know Bill Harrigan?
Yeah.
He runs that.
No way.
Yeah, the Fairfield one. So he keeps it so clean. So we're like, that's
Good.
the one
good.
we just go
That'd be
to
the
all
comp
the time.
I'm interested in. I hate bad sportsmanship.
Yeah, it's ugly.
Like, yeah.
Does a different side come out when you play?
When Oztag, no, I mean like Oztag, no, but like I found five-a-side soccer used to be a little bit because in the five-a-side soccer comp we'd play. Yes, it was in the Shire, but you'd get people come from everywhere would come and play in it because it was huge. I didn't realize, but the Sutherland Shire, like not the five-a-side, but just the Sutherland Shire Soccer League, is the biggest biggest amateur soccer league in the Southern Hemisphere. So,
Really?
Yeah, it's just crazy. Like you have some clubs like Lillypilly. Just Lillypilly itself has 1,000 players in the one club. Like he's
What in the
absolutely massive. So every age group has like a dozen grades or
That's
teams. Like it is
crazy.
crazy. So they are always desperate to find fields.
Yeah,
because you
yeah,
just got to
yeah.
play game after game after game after game. So
That's insane.
yeah, so it's really big. So and
That's so
the
cool.
five-a-side soccer team is really seen is good too. And I would get we'd play the five-a-side team was mixed.
Yeah.
And we'd sometimes get some guys on the other teams that would think they were Ronaldo or things like that. And I don't mind not having the skills, but some of them would throw their weight around. And like if a guy on an opposition team bumped one of our girls, then priest or no priest, I was bumping him as I'd wait till it would be like ice hockey. If he got up next to the wall, then it was bang. It was a bit of a wall check, and it was just like, listen, mate. I don't mind you going after me, but don't touch the girls.
Nice. A true gentleman. I love that. That's so good.
Yeah.
Hey, Father, a little bit of spiritual direction here for me, if you don't mind. But I feel like Oztag is my release.
Yeah.
So I don't sort of release any anger, frustration, anything generally in life, there's not much to be angry about, I mean, there's plenty to be, but if you focus on it, then you're gonna just be a depressed person. But I'm I'm really chill, calm, and then when I get on the Oztag field or when I'm watching footy, it's a whole nother level. And is it bad that my intention when I get on the field is to get under the
Skin of the opposition?
Yeah.
Well, look, I think I'm going to have to make a confession to you here too as well. I used to play, through high school, I used to play rugby union. And that was great. I loved it. And for me, it was a big release. It was a big tension release. It was a big, get your anger out. It was like get the mongrel out of you. It was, but I didn't put on my growth spurt until the end of high school. So I went through most of high school as a little guy. So going into year 11, I was 5'6" and weighed 55, 60 kilos. So I was small.
Wow.
I used to play, but I'd play rugby and I love it. And so, but when you're playing on the opens team, you're playing against guys that weigh twice as much as you. They're 1.5 foot taller. They're massive.
Yeah.
And I knew that to survive, I had to go in. If I was tackling someone, you couldn't be half-hearted. So I'd actually almost have if I can put it this way, it'd be almost like the intention of like killing the bloke as he came running at me. Not because I was going to kill him, but it was like, but I needed to hit him with that kind of intensity so that he would simply drop to the floor, not so that I'd wipe him out, but so that he'd get tackled and I wouldn't die in the process. It was self-defense. It was self-defense, but I'd have to play with that kind of anger and that kind of intensity. And then on the only once in my footy career did I ever cross the line. Like where like the white line fever got a bit too much, but there was a context to it. So we were playing against. I went to Redfield College in Dural, and I was playing against. We were playing against one of our local rivals, Marion College. Now, it was the midweek rugby comp, so it wasn't. It was a midweek rugby. It was called the Hill Zone District like rugby, and it was an absolute wild west of a comp. And what I mean by wild west is that the schools, they don't do it anymore, I don't think, but back then, like 20 plus years ago, used to cheat. Like they would bring back old boys, guys that were like 20, 21 years old, and they would put them onto the senior team. So you were playing against fully grown men a lot of the time. And because the checks and balances just weren't there, so like there was some stuff that went on, and so the games were brutal, and there were a few at times, not every game, but there were at times there was some punch-ons in there. Anyway, there was this one game, and I was in year 10, so I wasn't even in the senior team. The midweek comp had 3 teams. You had juniors, so year 7 and 8, intermediate, 9s and 10s, and then seniors, 11 and 12. Yep. And I was in the intermediate team, but this one week, the seniors were short on players. So I got the call up. And I'm 15. I'm going up against the 17, 18-year-olds, and I'm put in, and I am small. My voice still sounds like this. Hasn't broken yet. And I'm on the team, and I get put in at flanker. We came in. We had exactly 15 players, so we had a full team, no reserves. Yikes. We go to the other school, and they not only have a full team, they got a full reserve bench. We're playing in front of their home crowd too. All their students are there, and.
What's flanker?
Flanker. Sorry. So it's a position. It's a position unique to rugby union. So in a rugby union scrum is a real scrum, and that's just going to say that to especially a special shout out to friend of the podcast, Father Ronnie Marie, because rugby league just has, and I'm a big rugby league fan, but rugby league scrums are group cuddles. That's all they are.
Surely he doesn't argue that.
No, he don't. No, he probably wouldn't argue that. But the rugby union scrums, they have 2 extra players in the scrum. So you've got the 3 in the front row, the 2 second rowers, you've got the lock at the back, but then you have these 2 guys that are flankers that bind onto the side of the second rower. So their heads are not inside the scrum. They're on the outside. They're only bound by one arm.
Yeah.
They can't really, I mean, they in the pushing in the scrum, they can do a bit of moving forward. But what they really are good for in the scrum is countering like the wheeling, like trying to turn the opposition or counter the wheel. But their main job, their old name for them was breakaways, because that was literally their job, was at the scrum, was as soon as the ball came out, was to break away and rush the 5/8.
Oh, okay.
And put pressure on the first receiver. And get up there in his grill, like get in there, put pressure on him, try to disrupt the play, and that's still their job. So the breakaways or the flankers, they're actually primarily a defensive position, and usually on a union team, they're essentially the fittest guys on your team, because their job is to get to every breakdown. They've got to be in there trying to steal the ball at every tackle. They've got to be. They should have the highest tackle count of any player. They're a forward, but they've got to be able to move like a back. So so they, and yet have the same physical strength to go toe to toe in the rucks and the mauls with the big boys, with the big forwards. So.
And you're thrown into
and
that.
here's me. He said, "Oh, guess what? You're playing flanker at this game." Anyway, this game was a nightmare. It was we were playing against them, and it was just tense from the beginning. And anyway, unfortunately, our winger got tackled. His head came out the wrong side of the ruck, came out the other side, and his opposite number ran in and kicked him while he was helpless on the ground. Anyway, one of our centres, that was just a red rag to a bull. So this guy came flying across and he clocked this guy. And as soon as he did that, boom, another player came out and the thing just exploded into this almighty brawl. And I dead set thought, it was so bad, I just thought they're going to call the game. They're going to call it off. But eventually they pulled everybody apart, settled everybody down, and then we resumed, right? Then the game's going on. Anyway, then we have our halfback. He's in there. And like rugby union halfbacks, I don't know if they're... another difference is in the scrum, rugby union halfbacks are also famous for having a bit of lip. And so our halfback was a very good halfback, but he also had a lip on him. So he was giving it to the opposition, like front row, basically telling them, how unathletic they were, like how, he was basically he was just having to go at him every scrum. He was just having to go. Anyway, eventually one of these big meathead props just had enough and literally right in front of the referee unbound from the scrum and threw an uppercut at our halfback, and he swung out of the way. He avoided it, it, but the problem was then it was just on. So from the scrum as well. Just boom, everyone rushed in, and then but this time it got even worse because then the opposition team cleared the bench. So suddenly we're outnumbered. So the opposition bench ran in, and then it was on. And then when I thought surely they're going to call it off, was when the fans invaded the field too. What? So I thought this is it. Like this is they have to call the game off. But no, it took them best part of 10 minutes, but they settled everything down to put everybody. And guess what? We're still going. We are still playing the game. So we go on, and I have not been able to do anything. I have been little more than a human speed bump the entire match. Like I just get in the way. I've just been rolled. I've just been slammed. I haven't made one tackle. I'm supposed to be in the number one defensive position, and the problem was that. To make that as worse, they were so short, they didn't even have a proper jersey for me. So Redfield, but way back in the day, played rugby league before it switched to union. And so they pulled out of the school museum like an old rugby league jersey. So I had that on. I'm the littlest guy. And so at every kickoff, they targeted me. Like they would put the ball straight down my throat, and I'd look up and there'd be this herd of rhinos coming at me. And I'm like, there is no way I'm trying to run through them. So I just dropped to the ground and placed the ball back. And then boom, and then it was just all this chaos would happen. 100%. Like I was in survival mode. I've been survival mode the entire game. I just want to get out of this, and it didn't. And it was survival mode. Because I at one stage I had something similar happen to what happened to our winger. I got tackled. My head came out the wrong side of the ruck, and as can happen in union, I'm really not making a good advertisement for it for all the concerned mums out there. But my head came out the wrong side of the ruck. Now in rugby union, you have to use your feet to get the ball back. So you've got a rake. Right. Yep. And back then actually in union, they used to only let us use metal studs because plastic chips and then it becomes like razor sharp. Whereas the metal, even though it's harder, is a blunter instrument. So it's less likely to do like serious damage, but it still hurts. Yeah. And so my head's come out the wrong side of the ruck. And so the opposition forwards just decided perfect. We'll just trample on his head. So I had like forward after forward just come over with his boots and just that they were rucking my head. And so I got gashed like all the way from up the side of the head. So I had these huge like scars and blood was coming out, and I got out. Anyway, so I was wearing a head guard, right? But even said that it was still got. They still managed to get underneath and ruck me. So I've been in survival mode. I've got my face has been opened up on the side, and anyway, finally we're nearly at the end of the game, and there is a scrum. I'm at open side flanker. Their 5'8" he's in my line of sights, and he's a good player, but he's been talking trash to our team all game. Yeah. Anyway, finally. Their halfback, he literally gives me a gift. He throws an absolutely rubbish pass to their to their 5/8, and it was like this balloon that just went up. And so as he's released it, I've broken away from the scrum, and this 5/8 has had to jump up to take the ball. So his entire rib cage is completely exposed, everything like that. And this is the only time in the game I have had an opportunity to put a shot on anybody. And I am so sick of being the human speed bump the entire game. So I came in and I hit him with everything that I had, and boom, and it went into it, took him down solidly, and I was like, in there. But I know the hit was completely legal, and this is why I'm telling this story against myself, because we were talking about white line fever.
Yeah.
So we're in the ruck, and I'm stuck on him. Like, normally you're supposed to roll away, but literally the herd of elephants came in over the top, and I'm stuck. So we're there. He's looking at me. I'm looking at him with all angry faces at 30 centimeters and things. And then finally the ruck breaks away. And as I said, I'm telling this against myself. I'm not trying to talk this up. It's the only time I can genuinely say I crossed the line. And it was because there was so much tension had built up. I'd been in 2 all-in brawls. I had been beaten from pillar to post for the entire match. And then as we were getting up, complete brain explosion. As he was trying to get up, I just sort of grabbed his head guard and pushed him back into the ground as I was getting up. And it wasn't premeditated. I hadn't thought about it. It just happened.
Yeah.
It was almost like I didn't even think about it. It just happened. And then he jumped up, and next thing you know, he's got me around the throat. You want to go? And then everything. I thought, oh no, I've started World War III. It's going to be all on again. But fortunately, we got pulled apart, and then I think like 1 minute later, the game ended. So I was like, oh, but that, and I do say, so I'm saying that it is sportsmanship is a virtue. But one of the reasons why I've told us why I appreciated playing rugby so much, and it would be the same for like playing league, but it is a tremendously character building sport. It is, in some respects, it's a preparation for war. And there is a reason why that game was invented when the British Empire was at its peak. Like, it was invented at a time where the British schools were seen as like, we are the school, the preparation ground for the future soldiers, generals, and leaders of the British Empire. So what it was? Yeah, so that's where it came out of. It came out of the British public. So it was like it was seen almost as as like a necessary part of the curriculum. It wasn't just the academics that they had to learn, but it's also where you learn character, you learn courage, you learn you literally have to bind with your brothers, your teammates, to repel the enemy. And then you have to try, storm their castle. You've got to try and score. And I found that too. And you would see the different character traits come out of players. You could see guys that had tremendous courage that would put themselves on the line, would defend. You'd see guys have an ability just to play through pain, like just to almost ignore it. When you realize, man, I mean, you said you should, your fingers hanging off there, mate. You shouldn't. Why are you still on the field? But it's like, no, you're not taking me off. You're not taking me off. Yeah, and so they go out. But there is. And there's also something like quasi-spiritual about being inside a rugby dressing shed, like being inside the change rooms, like very different to like a soccer dressing room. This is not to knock soccer, but like if you look, for example, like if you're watching like the Super Rugby, or even if you're watching like the NRL, and you look at the scenes in the change rooms right before the teams run out, compared to the scenes in a soccer dressing room, before the teams run out, it's quite different. Like what I see when I look at a soccer dressing room is I see a lot of cats wandering about, sort of looking after themselves and things like that. And then, making sure they look good, making sure their hairband's in properly, and things like that, making sure they look immaculate, and then walking out. Whereas if you look at a rugby dressing room, a league or a union dressing room, like the guys are bonding like with
Yeah.
with each other. There's a closeness. There is an absolute brotherhood. Like there's a real sense of team.
Yes. Yeah.
When they come out, right before they come out, when they come out, and I loved that about footy. Growing up, I love that. So
I love that too. That's what I still enjoy about the team sports, and it's like, even though it's just like for a lot of us, like it's just OzTag, it's like it's still a competitive sport. Yeah. That we're playing, but like I used to play league as a kid, but even now is like at any opportunity where like, if a game's off or something, I'm like, let's go out, like it's a bit of like team bonding or whatever, because then you get on the field and competition's just different. Like I get competitive, but I obviously I want to win and stuff like that, but it's like I want to be playing for the people next to me.
Yes.
And that I miss that about playing league.
And you don't want to let them down.
Yes, that's
it's like
right.
and that's what makes you go like the extra mile. You might be hurting, you might be out of breath, but you're like, no, but the guy next to me needs me to hold my position in the line. Otherwise, everybody gets let down.
Yeah. That's the best thing about it. I was actually speaking to a mate of mine on Saturday. We had like a friend's Bucks night, and we were just sitting talking about when we used to play footy. And it was exactly that. It was the brotherhood where like we miss it. Like that sort of thing is insane, because you would, even in the heat of the moment, like maybe you don't do it the right way, but there's still something you miss about, even if you did it the wrong way, about that passion that you had in that moment. Is like, I love that stuff. That's so good.
Don't be afraid. Like if you need to, like if you see like the competitive side as being, part of being particularly being a man is also learning how to defend, protect those that you love, and the aggressive side that we have in us, in its own way, is God-given, right? I mean, and Jesus used it too. All you have to do is look at him in the temple. He wasn't, flipping over tables and getting the whip of cords and driving people out. I mean, it's not a side of Jesus we often meditate on or reflect on usually, but it's a real thing. And there is such a thing as righteous anger. Now, and I think sport, especially contact sports, are an important school in that. And it's where you learn sportsmanship is a genuine virtue. It's how I learn to take that part of me and use it in a controlled way for a good cause. Now, if I step out of line, if I do that, well, then usually in the game and stuff, there are penalties that are inbuilt.
Yeah.
And they should be, because this is the thing, is that I have crossed the line. And so, and it's good, like after a game, to do a little bit of an examination. Especially if you felt like, well, maybe I did go a bit hard. Yeah. Okay, like you do a little examination of conscience after the game. Like, did I play that? Did I play that hard and aggressive, but as a sportsman, or was I just dirty?
Yeah, cool.
So
that's good to know, because I worry about that sometimes. So that's pretty good to know. Is like, can you still be competitive and all that stuff, but still be a good sport? Or is it just always like, take it easy? Like,
no, you shouldn't take it easy. I mean, I think taking it easy is the antithesis of sport.
Yeah.
What elite athlete takes it easy in their sport of choice?
Yeah.
And so like competing to the max is determined by how you do. Is determined by whatever sport you're playing, and in contact sports, especially full contact sports, hitting hard with all of your ability is essential to the game. But you got to do it legally, and only in the time and in the manner that the rules allow.
Yeah. That's fair.
Yeah, I do think there is a bit of a line. Like I don't know if people would think that's somewhat hypocritical, but like I enjoy boxing, but I have struggled with following like UFC.
Me too.
I think UFC, like I have no doubt, like the athleticism of the fighters and stuff and their courage, their ability to go through pain. Like, I mean, they are warriors,
Yeah.
no question,
Yeah.
no question. But there is that part of me where was growing up in a football background and stuff where you're told to train to use your aggression in a way that's still sportsmanlike. Whereas I look at a guy being absolutely wailed on while he's on his back on the ground. I look at that and I go, okay, how many more steps is it going to take before we're back in the Colosseum with Roman gladiators?
Oh, that's so true. They're not far off.
They're not that far off. Okay, we're not allowed to kill anybody, but but at the same time, like what you're allowed to do to someone is pretty loose. It's pretty extreme.
Yeah. That's what I say. That's the same thing I say about like MMA. The UFC stuff is like you're allowed to. It troubles me that you're allowed to use like elbows, forearms and stuff. But when they're on the ground, like forearms as well. But then again, when they're on the ground, you have to. It's like part of the sport is to jump on top of them and just, like you were saying, wail on them. Like that is like barbaric.
There is a barbarism. There's a barbarism to MMA that isn't in boxing.
Yeah.
Boxing is a brutal sport.
It is.
It is a brutal sport.
Yeah.
And anyone who competes in it knows that it is. But I think that word you use, barbarity, is the correct one. There is a level of barbarity in UFC or MMA, any MMA league, that isn't in boxing.
Yeah.
And there's a certain, like you were talking about the Marcus of Queensberry rules, like which is, no punching below the belt, no wrestling, like there's all the restrictions. That instills, once again, coming out of the British Empire, where they were trying to take aggression and use it in a controlled and ordered way, even in the most brutal of sports, which is combat, like boxing. So, and I totally get the hype around MMA. They do a UFC markets itself extremely well, and where they got the market, got people hooked in, was their ability to tell stories, to get you invested in the person, not just the fight. So the way they do the promotion, where you would get to go on the journey with this particular fighter as they got ready for the fight, all their ups and downs, their worries and stuff. So you were invested in the story, and it was a real story, unlike say like WWE, which used to get people invested.
Careful where you're going, Father. Careful where you're going.
I'm kidding. No. As a kid, I loved WWE because I was still under the illusion, of course, that it was somehow,
real.
somehow real.
Not a real sport.
It's not. Hang on.
No. Okay,
It's a sport.
It is athletic entertainment.
It's a sport.
It's
It's entertainment, but it's a sport as well.
Oh no, they're athletes.
Yeah,
They're athletes.
Okay, cool.
What they do is for real. Like, no, I am not. I'm not.
I'm kidding.
Yeah, no, they are. But they create the storylines, and that's what people invest in. They invest in the characters.
Yeah.
Right. They invest in what are essentially comic book characters playing out themselves out in real life. Right?
Yeah, pretty much.
So they are. That's what they are. We just go to see a live action comic. That's what we do when we go and watch WWE.
Yeah.
Right. But they're real. I mean, they're incredible athletes. Right.
Yeah.
UFC. They're real fighters. They've got real lives. They've come from real hardship often.
Yeah.
And so you invest in that. They've turned like the blending of competition sport with reality television. Yeah. We're now expected to have access to and to invest in not simply the competition that takes place, but everything that goes on around it.
Yeah. So
and that ties in with the social media age that we're into, which of course it makes for a much more rich and colourful story. And absolutely ups the personal investment of your average fan. But I think there's also it's also a symptom. There's like almost like a cultural voyeurism that has come out of social media, which makes people think I have a right to know everything that's going on in your life. And because everybody feeds that because of the stuff, the inanities that we post on to our Instagram or our Facebook or whatever. It's like I saw a great little meme ages ago where it's like this housewife from like the 1950s who said, right, I have just made all the lunches and hung out all the clothes on the line, and now I'm going to ring up every single one of my friends and let them know what I've just done. and that's kind of like what we do with,
that's right. That's so true.
So yeah, I think there's good and bad. There's some certain plus side, like you can invest in people on an emotional level to a greater degree, but at the same time, I think there's also a darker side that comes with that as well.
Yeah. Do you have any other titles other than parish priest?
Yeah. So I'm the head of my formal title is vicar for clergy. So I'm one of two priests in the Archdiocese of Sydney that's got the charged by the Archbishop with kind of looking after priestly well-being. So we're like the go-betweens between the Archbishop and the priest. Like if there's a guy who may be struggling a bit or flagging, then we'll go out and visit him or see what he needs, try facilitate the help. Also as a point of communication. If His Grace wants to deliver needs to deliver a message or something to a guide, then we can do that. But also on the flip side, if priests want an advocate with the Archbishop, then that's also our job too. So we go both ways. So if for example, I don't know, I've never had to do this, but like, for instance, if a guy just says, look, my mental health's been struggling and I would just like to, I don't know, if I could just have a few extra weeks off this year just to sort of get myself in the right headspace, then I'm allowed to give that priest the permission to take the time off. Oh, wow. So, so I could do, I mean, that's one little example, but it's essentially about looking after your brother priests. And so it's a privileged role because it means that I've got an extra duty of making sure that my brother priests in Sydney are part of my prayers, part of my mass. That's first and foremost. Yeah. And then it's finding out, okay, who needs help, who needs looking after. Now, I'm very blessed as the other vicar for clergy. So what the Archbishop tries to do is have a vicar for clergy who's more senior and then have a younger priest as a vicar. And so the more senior priest, I mean, he's obviously he's got far more runs on the board, but also he's also closer to a lot of the older priests in the Archdiocese who I would be like junior to. And, while they may be happy to talk to me, they might prefer to talk to a guy that's more their peer. Yeah. So they'll talk to him, and then there's myself, and obviously I'm naturally very close to most of the younger priests because we either went through seminary together or I knew them when they were coming through. So there's that connection there too. But my other job, and it's probably the job that actually takes up the most time for me, apart from being parish priest of Sutherland, is I'm head of ongoing formation for the clergy in Sydney. So I'm in charge of running all our clergy conferences, workshops, in-services, enculturation programs, all that sort of thing too. Wow. So yeah, so it's great. But once again, that job is an enormous privilege, but I also have the most incredible help. So so I'm really lucky on that front. So that's awesome. There's the staff at the Archdiocese, but there's one staff member in particular who is beyond amazing. So
awesome.
And the priest will know her name's Maria Cavallaro. She is she's basically, she runs the ongoing formation office. So and she's I don't have high enough words of praise for her. She's an incredible help in that front, and she's the reason why I think our clergy conferences are so good. Because she's so professional about what she does. So
Oh, bless her, that's awesome.
yeah, no, it's wonderful. So they're my jobs. Parish priest is my biggest job and most important job, and my favourite job. And but very importantly, vicar for clergy. And then, which I only just became on St. Patrick's Day. I thought it was very fitting. I'm parish priest of St. Patrick's, and I got made vicar for clergy on St. Patrick's Day.
That's awesome.
And then head of ongoing formation. So we will, So my
Wow.
plate is full.
Okay, yeah, I was going to say you're a busy man.
My plate is full, but also importantly, my cup is full.
Amen.
So that is.
That's awesome. Well, I was asking you that so that I could do the introduction, but I think you kind of just did it for me. Are we all right to keep all of that?
It's fine.
Okay,
That's
sweet.
fine.
Sweet, thanks for that. And all I'll do is just introduce your name. Firstly, welcome back to Against the Grain to everyone listening. And today I'm so honoured and glad to have as we've all just heard, thank God that you took over that role, because I am not good with the introductions. I'm so sorry. But the head of ongoing formation, the vicar for clergy, and the parish priest at St. Pat's in Sutherland, Father Dan McCaughn.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for,
It's a
for
joy
coming
to
on.
be here.
I'm so glad. I've been waiting like a while to I'll message Father Dan soon. I'll reach out, and then it just got to a point where I was like, I need to stop just pushing it back, and I'm just gonna reach out. And you were so easygoing. You're so keen to come on, so I'm so glad that you're here. Thanks so much.
I feel like saying like I'm a long time listener, first time caller, or first time participant.
What an honor! Yeah. What an honor! And you're not a stranger to the faith and footy world, are you?
No.
You were part of the I can't remember the name of the night, but the one with James Graham and stuff like that. You did it in the Shire.
Yes, we've had 2 nights. So we've had 2 men's nights in Movember, like for men's health, and we had 2 nights. One just last year, and then one the year before, which was basically an open discussion panel featuring James Graham, of course, former Bulldog and Dragon, and of course English rugby league star. Hosting, and then the first year we did it was with him. It was also with a psychologist who specialises. A guy who's a psychologist, specialises in Joel Curtis, specialises in men's mental health, and then myself. So we had the panel, and then of course the following year they wanted to do it again, but I said you need to get a different priest, okay? Like it's mix it up. And I thought if we're going to be talking faith and footy and men's mental health, then there can be only one priest that should do that, and of course was the great Father Ben Saliba, and he did awesome. He did an amazing job, and he appeared last year with James Graham, but also with the former Sydney Swans star Ty Kennelly. So that was a great panel, and those of you that are very familiar with the show will know that Father Ben has this gift of being able to ask really good questions, but also in a way of being able to elicit really good responses from people. And I think for James and Ty, I think they both, having not known, they didn't know Father Ben at all before the day, ended up really not only warming to him, but I think really realizing that he made a great contribution to that night and to that panel.
Awesome. So
yeah, I've always and I was there. It was a privilege. I was sitting there in the crowd that night, and I thought, Ben, you knocked it out of the park.
Awesome. Thanks be to God. Yeah, he's just a natural, isn't he?
Man. I mean, like, I'm not going to say he is wasted as the Archdiocesan MC, because he's an absolute gun. Like, and I know he has so much work to do there, which is why he's no longer able to be on the podcast the way he was. But if you're listening, Father Ben, you absolutely have a future in this kind of ministry. So when time allows, I pray you come back to it in some way, shape, or form, because he's a gift.
He'll be killing it. He'll be killing it.
Yeah.
And he's been doing some things with Perusia Media as well, which has been
that's right.
awesome. So
Yeah.
if anyone doesn't know that's listening, please check that out. There's the round table, I think they call it. Sorry if I've got the name wrong, but Father Ben's on there. He's also putting up the short videos to interrupt the doom scroll, which is awesome on the Perusia page. So follow that. Father, are you still obviously watch footy? I mean,
Yes.
you know, you've got your Rabbitohs scarf on. I loved when I saw that coming out. It's so good.
I grew up. So as I say, I grew up. So I grew up in Kensington, which is now this is very important because the number of times when I tell people I come from Kensington in Sydney, people go, "Oh, you must be a Roosters fan." At that point, I want to hit on the ground and go, "Are you kidding? No way am I a Roosters fan." Why am I Rabbitohs? Well, because Kensington, and this is the point I have to make emphatically to people, is that everyone thinks, "Ooh, he comes from Kensington." Kensington falls on the western side of Anzac Parade. And by being on the western side of Anzac Parade, we are squarely in South Sydney Rabbitohs territory. The second you cross the road to the eastern side of Anzac Parade, you're in Roosters territory. So there is a border, basically where Kensington meets Randwick. So Kensington is a south suburb, and Randwick is a Roosters suburb. So I grew up always following the Rabbitohs, and I really realise, I don't know what it is, but South fans will understand this, but they have a way, the club, the colours, the tradition, the history, has a way of getting into your DNA. So I grew up following South. I went through school in the 1990s. And look, let's not beat around the bush. Souths sucked in the 1990s. And not only that, we were so bad, we got kicked out of the competition.
Oh my gosh, yes.
We got kicked out of the competition. When they had in the wake of Super League, but testament to the club fought its way back in, and because we have such a massive fan base, there was such a groundswell of support that Souths came back, and look. God bless Russell Crowe, and but we needed his millions to sort of to get us back in. But we did. We got back in, and we haven't looked back. And so South's sort of like pre and post expulsion were like sort of two completely different chapters of following the club. But I also went to schools. I've come from Kensington, but I went to school at Redfield College in Dural, which is miles away from Kensington. So everyone that I went to school with, almost all the boys, but they either followed the Tigers, they followed the Eels, and you might have and also back in the early day in the 90s, of course, the North Sydney Bears still existed, so you had some Bears and Manly supporters as well there. I was the only Souths fan, and I used to get given a hard time for it week in, week out, because we'd lose. But I remember like a very strong sense at the time. No, I am South Sydney till I die, and many of our scarves and jerseys like say that, and it was just something I knew from the time I was a kid. I don't care how bad this club is, and if we never win another game, I will always be a Souths fan. That's awesome. So I've stayed with them, and we've enjoyed some very good times, and some tough times. High point, of course. Why it was extra special, when we won the premiership in 2014, I'd been living overseas in Italy for 5 years.
Oh, wow.
And I had just moved back to Australia to start as a parish priest in Ryde. And literally the weekend I moved back to Australia, that very Saturday that I came back was the night of the 2014 grand final. And so I come back to Australia, and my beloved club gave me the best welcoming home present, which was a victory over the Bulldogs. So,
well, thanks for reminding me of that. That's awesome, actually. So it was on a Saturday night, was it?
No, excuse me, it was a Sunday. Pardon me. It was a Sunday. It was a Sunday night. No, yes, but it was that weekend.
That
weekend,
very
weekend.
Crazy.
Yeah, I think it was October the 7th,
welcome
2014, home. If I'm not mistaken. That was the date we won.
That's awesome that you remember that. Wow, what a welcoming. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Welcome home. Here's a grand final for you.
It was a grand final, yes. So it was
For all
it was
the
a,
years
it was
of
an
suffering.
auspicious beginning to parish ministry.
That's awesome. So why were you in Rome?
I was in Rome. I'd done 3.5 years in the seminary in Sydney, and then one day I got called in by Cardinal Pell. And initially when the Cardinal calls you think, "Ooh, okay, what have I done?" And you go in and you see him, and he was never one to muck around. So he sat down. Dan, how you going? I was okay. He said, right. He said, I want you to finish your studies in Rome.
Oh, that's awesome.
Like, wow. So I ended up, being sent over to Rome as a seminarian. I went to live in the Pontifical North American College, so the American seminary, and that was super special. And there were so many highlights of my time. I did my baccalaureate at the Pontifical University of the Holy Cross, which is an amazing university. And then I went on to do my licentiate at the John Paul II Institute for Marriage and Family, which was at the inside the Lateran. There were, if I can just say this really quickly, because it's kind of like, it's sort of timely, but the death of Pope Francis, I've felt sort of in a kind of like a personal way, because when I was in the square the night he was elected, so I saw the white smoke come from the chimney and saw him appear on the balcony. I've been in some big footy crowds, but nothing compares to the excitement of the crowd that night when Francis appeared on the balcony. Like, there's the faithful rejoicing that we have Peter again you kind of like, you get goosebumps. Like, you just kind of got to be there to sort of experience it. But where it became so special was, I was a deacon at the time, and I got chosen, God knows how, but to be a deacon at his mass, Pope Francis's mass of inauguration. And we were, the night before the mass, we're rehearsing, and I got pulled aside by the Vatican MC to tell me that I was going to be given a very special job. And so before the mass began, I was to go down with Pope Francis to the tomb of St. Peter to pray with him there. And then on top of the tomb, there would be, on a silver tray, the fisherman's ring, the symbol of papal authority that would be there. My job was then to pick up the ring, carry it in front of Pope Francis, down through the basilica, out into the square for the inauguration mass. And at the start of the inauguration mass, as he was installed, as his pontificate was inaugurated, I was to present him with the ring of Peter, which I did. And it was the most wonderful and surreal experience of my life.
Wow.
So I am to be down underneath the high altar of St. Peter's Basilica, that's Catholic ground zero, right there, okay? And you're there, and to pray with the Pope. And I remember being down there, and there was this wonderful other young French deacon by the name of Roland, and he was given the job of carrying the pallium, which is the lamb's the lambskin. It's kind of like, it's a little bit like a stole, but it hangs over the front and the back. That's a symbol, also the other symbol of papal authority. So, so Deacon Roland had the pallium and I had the ring. And so we're there together with the Pope, and down in the tomb with us, Pope Francis had invited all the Eastern patriarchs. So I'm pretty sure the head of the Maronite Church was down there too. But you have the Chaldeans, the Melkites, the Copts. Everyone was in there, and so it's crowded, but it was amazing. So we got to pray there with the Pope, and then when we got given the signal, then to pick up the ring, and as I'm walking down the basilica, holding the ring, and the box is open, and it was a silver ring plated in gold and had an image like a bust of St. Peter with the crossed keys of Peter sort of behind it, and I'm carrying it. I'm walking down, And this is going to sound like a stupid thought, but this thought went through my head as I'm walking down, and there's lines of like Swiss guards. You got cardinals, and there's 250,000 people out in the square. And I'm carrying the ring, and I remember thinking, I'm just a yobbo from the suburbs of Sydney. What am I doing with the Pope's ring? You know, what am I doing with the Pope? This is ridiculous. Like, this is ridiculous. How did I get from Kenzo to here? And I'm holding the ring, and it was absolutely surreal. And and then I got to the moment. We got to present him with the ring, and it was wonderful. So there was a cardinal who physically put the ring on the Pope's finger. It was a guy called Cardinal Angelo Sodano. So he takes the ring from the tray, puts it on the Pope's finger, and the Pope like squeezed his hand, and he was just saying, as he said to everyone, I think that day, he says, pray for me, pray for me, pray for me. Yeah, so we're like, then I come off, and then after having given him the ring, so I still had several other jobs. So I had to sing, with the exception of the gospel. I didn't sing the gospel, but I had to sing all the other parts of the mass. So I had to sing the intro to each of the prayers of the faithful. I'd have to sing, for example, like let us offer each other the sign of peace, but it was all in Latin. And then I have to sing the dismissal as well. So, and anyway, I'd had to get to the basilica so early that morning that I had to leave before they served breakfast in the college. So I was running on nothing. I was running on pure adrenaline, and just the emotional, eruption that had taken place within me of like being with the Pope and presenting him with the papal ring. So during the homily, I'm sitting there listening, and out of the blue, I had a blood sugar level crash. So I started to black out. No. While I'm sitting on the over on the side on my deacon stool.
Oh my god!
And I'm terrified because I have to sing, the prayers of the faithful. That's coming up after the creed, which is straight after the homily, and I'm like coming in and out, and I'm like rocking about, and I start praying like mad. And the stuff you say when you're in situations like that, I was like, okay, God, look, you can kill me after the mass, but for heaven's sake, just let me, just let me get through. And so anyway, then we have to get up, and it's time for the creed. I managed to get myself on my feet, but I can't speak. I couldn't say a word. I'm just standing there. I am like out on my feet. And it's like, there's been so much adrenaline has pumped through me. I'm now exhausted, and I'm there. But then all of a sudden, another MC comes over with the music book and the microphone, puts it in front of me, and I hold the book, and suddenly I'm like, oh my goodness. Now it didn't help that I'd been told just before going out, there is a television audience of 1 billion that's going to be watching this. So I get and amazingly, when the microphone gets put in front of me, and then the book's given to me, this I found another shot of adrenaline from somewhere. So it kicked in, and then so I went, sang the prayers of the faithful, got through, and then I have to go straight into that to setting up the altar for the Pope. So now I'm still running on the push of the adrenaline. So I go and we set up, Deacon Roland and I set up the altar for the Pope, and then the Holy Father comes over and start the Eucharistic prayer. And now I am standing directly behind the Pope, right? Well, just over his left shoulder. I stand directly behind the Pope, and that's when I have my second blood sugar crash. So I run out of the second shot of adrenaline, and this time it's even more terrifying. You see, if I'd passed out before, I may not have been picked up because, I was over on the side. Now, and this is once again, the stupid thoughts that go through your head at this time, all I can think of is that if I go down, this is going viral on YouTube. This is at the papal inauguration. I am standing behind the Pope, and I probably look really pious. And in my head, I'm saying, Jesus, please don't let me be a meme. Please don't let me be a meme. And I'm hanging on. Then we get to kneel down, and I'm like, okay, cool. I can hide behind the altar. But I was able to hang on. And then I had the extraordinary privilege afterwards of receiving communion from the Holy Father. And at that Mass, he only gave communion to the deacons. So there were just 5 guys that received communion from the Pope at that Mass, and I was one of them.
Wow.
So it was very
What a
special.
privilege. What an
I have a
honor.
question. Why you? Like, not that it shouldn't have been you, but were you like top of your class? Were you like?
No,
had
well, I
the
wasn't. No,
Pope
I was
spoken
never
to you?
top of my class. I have never been top of my class. You are looking at a decidedly average student. But what had happened was that the American College was always asked by the Vatican Liturgy Office to send a short list of deacons that could chant in Latin. So they had a very good music program or liturgical singing program at the college, and I was in the choir, so I'd had the training, and so they gave the list, and several of my other classmates had done other events at the Vatican and other papal events leading up. I knew my name was on the list, but you have no idea when your name or if your name is going to come up.
Yeah.
So it came up right at the time of the papal inauguration. So that was amazing. But when you say why you, one of the funniest experiences happened right after that Mass. So after we all finished and we have to go back to the college, I get back to the college, and by now it's lunchtime. Now the entire college has been at the Mass. And so I'm walking into the dining room, and I'm coming in late. So there's 250 future priests all in the big dining room. And when I walk in, I don't know how familiar you are with Americans, but no one is more effusive in the backslapping department than the Americans are. And because it was like, when I walked in, it was like, well, a guy from their college gave the Pope the ring. So it was like, woo! It was like a little bit of like, knack pride. So it was like, so when I came in, so like the place just erupts, like into applause. All the Americans like, woo, yeah, like they're all cheering. Anyway, I'm walking through, these tables of cheering Americans where I can see down the end all the Aussies grouped at a table. So there was like about 13 of us that lived at the college at the time. And I'm walking down, all the Americans are cheering, the Aussies are not cheering. And I walk all the way down to the Aussie table, and they've all been at the Mass too. And I arrive at the Aussie table, and they say, Dan, you peaked early. And I thought, if there was ever a clearer demonstration of the difference between Americans and Aussies, there was it, mate. They were like, this tall poppy has got to come down. He thinks he just gave the Pope the ring, that he is someone special. So anyway, we'll show him that you are just one of us. You are the yobbo from the suburbs of Sydney. That is all you are, and it is all you'll ever be. So come here. It was straight down. But then of course, after saying that, they laughed, and then they patted me on the back. So, but I thought, perfect. And you know what? I needed that. That was really good.
I love that.
And you peaked early has been actually a line that has stayed with me. But I'll say this. I'll say, and I actually use this in talks that I've given. If I had to have my life over again, and I was given a choice, you can do the papal stuff, or you can become a priest, I would choose the priesthood every time. And I would be very happy to forego any of the stuff I got to do with the popes.
Wow.
So, yeah, because if you liked, the day I peaked was the day I said my first Mass. Like that, that completely blows. And I mean this, having been and having met 3 popes, John Paul II, Benedict, and Francis, as extraordinary an experience as it was on every one of those occasions, being able to offer the Mass, being able to absolve sins in confession, to baptize, to anoint, even to confirm, to marry, there's no comparison. There's no comparison. I mean, the meeting the popes has, of course, enriched my priesthood. Absolutely. It's incredible. It's enriched the priesthood. But if I had to have my life over and was given a choice of one or the other, there's no question I'm picking the priesthood.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Thanks be to God. That's so good to hear.
So
I can I tell you my first ever experience of you?
all right.
wasn't meeting you, but it was I was probably like 14 or 15 or something like that, and it was at Father Louis Barakat's first Thanksgiving Mass.
Oh, it's Thanksgiving Mass at Auburn.
Yes,
At
and I
Auburn.
didn't know Father Louis. I think the only reason we went, I don't know, I would just follow my brothers wherever they went. Like, I had only just started to take my faith a bit more seriously. But I think the reason we went is because our youth leader at the time, Alison, knew Father Louis. So I think she just kind of told us to go. So I went. I'd never been to like a Thanksgiving Mass. It was the first time, funnily enough, that I saw Father Ronnie. And I thought he was the one not becoming a priest. He was the one saying his first Mass. And I was like, that must be Father Louis. But then everything happened or whatever. And then you said you did the homily.
Yeah, I did the homily at that Mass.
At his Thanksgiving Mass. And I couldn't tell you, to be honest, the content of the homily now.
I
Because
probably
I have
couldn't
the
either.
worst. Yeah, because I have the worst memory. But I remember sitting in that during that homily and thinking, that is the most amazing thing I've ever heard in my life. Your homily was so incredible. And I remember after that homily, or during that homily, thinking, wow, you know what? The priesthood might be something that I could do. There was such beauty in that homily. And obviously now, like, I'm discerning my vocation of marriage.
Yeah, that's right.
Still discerning, hey, all right. No, I'm joking. But it made it real. That homily made priesthood a realistic possibility for me at 15, when all I had ever thought or known was marriage. I'd never thought that it was even anything remotely realistic for me. And after Mass, I was like, everyone in our group was like, who is that priest? But that was my first experience, of you. I don't know if that's the way.
That was a very special. I mean, Louis and I became very good friends. We were already friends before because I knew him in Sydney, but we became really good friends in Rome, and I was actually I remember being really humbled that he asked me to preach his first Mass, because even though he was a couple of years behind me in the seminary, he once again, I've never said it to his face, but I looked up to him already. He was he just has this, he had this maturity. He had this, I don't know, if aura is the right word, but there was just something about him that you knew that he was an incredibly good man, becoming a priest. And I was so excited that, when he got ordained, and then when he asked, would you give the homily, I was really touched that he asked that. And I remember feeling the grace of the whole occasion, both his ordination the day before, and then the Mass the next day. Really feeling the grace that sort of flowed, like the Holy Spirit was like coursing through this man in a whole new way, and I was just getting some of the love like that. That's sort of what it felt like.
Wow.
So yeah, it was a very, very, very special time, and he's a wonderful priest, and we look forward to having him back soon. He's over in Rome finishing off some studies, but
Yes,
yeah.
Is he coming back this year?
I think so. I want to say yes. I want to say
hope so.
yes. Yeah, I hope so too. I mean, unless he's doing so well that the Archbishop says, okay, cool, we might squeeze a doctorate out of him while he's over there. But who knows? But I believe he's coming back.
Okay.
Yeah.
I hope so. I'd like to have him on the podcast. So I'm kind of hoping he comes back.
We just have to go to Rome.
We have to go to
Against
Rome.
the grain goes to Rome.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
You won't come. I'll be there.
Oh, no,
We're not married yet. He was actually with my sister and my brother-in-law. They went with their son, to
Rome.
Switzerland and then to Rome
Mhm.
over like Christmas and New Year's, I think it was, or just Christmas. They came back for New Year's or something. I don't know when. And Father Louis was like, I don't know. They met Father Louis there. I don't know if they had met him before. But then he was like kind of their tour guide over that holiday. That they were loving it. So, and they came back, and my brother-in-law like is, I don't know if you can be fans of a priest. I mean, but he is a
he's
Father
become
Louis
big
fanatic.
Yeah. Which
He
is well,
loves it.
Louis always been very generous with his time because he would be like knowing what it's like trying to write your Tessina, which is like your license thesis. Like you're busy.
Yeah.
You're busy. But Louis was one of those guys that would always, like when he was with you, when he is with you, he is with you. He's not like looking over your shoulder to like what's coming next, but it's like you're the only person that matters to him in the time, which is even if he's under pressure. So,
Wow.
yeah.
Thank God. Well, I know we've kind of moved from topic to topic. I do want to talk footy with you.
Yes.
And then we're going to get into some deeper stuff, if that's okay.
Sure.
Awesome. So, firstly, is your whole family you have a big family, don't you?
Yes. So I'm the eldest of.
Now we're going back. Sorry, but
That's all right. Yeah. So I'm the
important to know.
eldest of 11 children. So 8 boys, 3 girls. So the reason your last episode or one of the last episodes where you had the dads talking about their children with disabilities, that resonated incredibly deeply with me, and I may have teared up once or twice listening to it. Because my youngest sister is, well, I can say unequivocally she's in heaven. She was number 11 and born with Down syndrome. And her name was Monica, or Moni as we called her. And as often with Down syndrome, it's not just Down syndrome, but they often have a lot of other health complications that go with it. So she had 2 holes in the heart. She ended up having a collapsed lung. Like there was all kinds of things. So she spent the first 2 months of her life in intensive care. And I remember going into the hospital, seeing her lying on the table with, tubes and everything coming out of her. And, I remember my father saying to me, as I'm like looking through the glass in at her, he said, underneath all those tubes is your sister, and it was that whole experience was the single greatest gift our family was ever given, was to have a sister with Down syndrome. We obviously did not have her for anywhere near as long as we'd like, but the reason what resonated with your other episode was that one common experience we all had when we found out that she had Down syndrome after she was born, and I think we'll all be unafraid to say it now, was that what went through the family was grief. Grief at the life that this child wouldn't have. Like she had 10 older siblings who are all more or less normal. I think a lot of people say, well, that's a subjective statement, but more or less normal. Yeah. But that she wouldn't have the same life as her brothers and sisters. Of course, there are real developmental challenges and things like that. And I think it will tie into what we want to talk about later.
Sure.
But anyway, we had Monica for only 16 months in the end, but they were 16 months of the most packed love. And as often as children with disabilities or special needs do, they end up being the reason you end up discovering them as a gift, even amidst all the real hardship, is that they become teachers of love. And I think, and like why you wouldn't wish it on anybody, and I'd agree with, I think it was Joe, the dad you had talking about, like, you wouldn't have them just the way they are. You'd want them healthy. Like if you could have it over, if I could have Monica without Down syndrome, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But she came as she came. And so she was welcomed as she was, and she was loved as she was. But she taught us to love as she was. And I look at my siblings now and I see my brothers and sisters, like, they like gravitate towards people with Down syndrome. Like there's this instant attraction and like this is bond. I just want to, I want to go talk to that person. I want to spend some time with them, and like there's just this instant connection, and not just Down syndrome, but just people with disabilities in general. Like and that hard. Where did they come from? It came from having our sister, and like I wish. Like on one level, I wish we still had her. She'd be like 23 now, but because she died at 16 months, but she'd been baptized and confirmed before she went. Like we have a saint in heaven. Okay, now she's not going to be put on the universal calendar of saints of the church, but I've got a saint in heaven who's my sister. And even though she's in heaven and sees God face to face, I'm still her big brother. And she interacts with me like I'm her big brother still. And it's a very real thing. Like I talk to her. She has ways of prompting me. And so she's now become an even greater gift because, now she's interceding in heaven. And I think she's actually brought the family, like, not that we were ever distant, but she's brought everyone like so much closer, and she's also made us much less afraid of our own feelings. And also one thing I really noticed is that we used to be a bit Aussie in the sense that we were pretty frugal with showing physical affection to one another. But after we had her and after she died, like we've just turned into a family of huggers. So it's awesome. Like, there's a lot more like real tangible affection with one another. And I actually attribute that to my sister. Wow. So yeah, but anyway, grew up big family, eldest of a big family. Close, 8 boys. We all played sport, played rugby, played cricket. We enjoyed tennis. We did athletics. So we did a lot of things. We had very, like a real normal upbringing, for kids in the 90s and early 2000s. So
awesome. Well, first, sorry to hear about the loss of your sister. I didn't actually know that. Which, sorry.
No, that's all right. No, no, like it's like not simply it is what it is. It's through the hardship, it actually ultimately has been the beautiful hand our family was dealt. And yeah, it's when you're able to place, as my parents, and this is where they were so amazing, as they just kept trusting whatever happened, just kept placing it into our Lord's hands, looked at, okay, whatever sufferings happen, whatever that they would trust that it would somehow work for the best. That's where they really led the family. So yes, of course I was sorrowful, and the most I've ever cried in my life was when my sister died. But the reality is now, would I wanted to leave heaven? No. It's like, I don't begrudge that at all. You can stay there as long as you help me get there.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. I mean, that's where we're trying to go, right?
Yeah, so absolutely.
That's the end goal. It's the end goal. That's awesome. Well, we'll probably, like you mentioned, it touches on what we're going to speak about a bit later. So I'm sure we'll again speak about that. But it's been a few weeks, I think, since we've even touched on football. Seems to be the missing piece here. So I will stay on topic now. I won't I won't shift or anything. You still watch footy, like...
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can't... It's not like I can have the time to sort of watch every single game, but
yeah,
I always stay following. Like, I'm always checking out, well, how did South go this week? We lost again. Like losing 30-4 to Newcastle, that was a bit rough.
That is, yeah. But missing players, there's an excuse there.
We have excuses. And even Saint Wayne Bennett, is not it's not enough to, even though his magic dust has done a lot, it's still not going to be enough. I mean, I'm not sure we'll play finals this year. I was hopeful we would at the start, but we'll see.
Yeah. I don't know. The season I feel like the season's going so fast that I still think it's really at the start, but we're like, I mean, I'm still waiting towards the beginning.
I am still waiting for Penrith to be like the team, like the horse that at the final straight turning is like coming last, and then just gets on the outside and just burns past everybody to win at the end.
I'm really.
I don't think
hoping for
Penrith
that.
has. I don't think Penrith's season has really started yet, because if you look at their lineup, there is no reason their team couldn't be up near the top. Yes, they've lost a few big players, but they're still good.
Yeah. Oh, this win against the Broncos this past week.
Yeah.
I was like, now we could be getting started. Like it's too early to say, yeah, they're back, but it was like old school. Old school was only like last year, but it was back to last year.
Like, just casting your eye ahead to Origin, would you persevere with all the Panthers players that were in the Origin team last year?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
me
would.
too.
Yeah,
Me too. I would go. I would keep, even though he's now left, but I would keep Cleary and Luai in the halves. Although it is very hard to look past Mitchell Moses, because he is playing so well.
Yeah.
And he's the automatic, like if anything happens to Cleary, he's like the automatic guy that steps in.
yeah.
He's probably not as good a tackler as Cleary, but he's got more explosive speed.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Oh, look, if they pick either one of those guys, I don't think anyone's really going to complain. They'll both do a great job. Here's a question based on current form. Tedesco or Edwards?
I'm still going Edwards.
Yeah, still going Edwards?
Yeah, I got asked that yesterday. I'm not taking Dylan Edwards out of any team ever in my life.
I would be inclined to agree. I'd be inclined to agree. Like I think, he's been quiet, perhaps because Penrith's been quiet, but he could turn it on.
Yeah.
So I would still stay
Origin's
with
different.
Penrith.
It's just different.
Yeah.
Like I know that you pick teams based on form and stuff, but I still think even if, say, Edwards is out of form, like say Panthers are killing it, but Edwards is not at his best, like he's there's something off about him, I'm still picking him for it. I just think Origin is so different that players, not that Tedesco wouldn't step up, but that Edwards would step up to the point where he's just the better option. Yeah. And I think the real discussion is Luai or Moses in 5'8". I think Cleary's spot is sealed. From what Laurie Daly has said.
The only thing is that like, well then, true. You could have, Moses probably sees himself more as an out and out number 7.
Yeah, definitely.
So putting him one out at 6 is, he's playing him slightly out of position. You're essentially playing two players that you got two halves that are essentially have the same style of play. Like they're the playmakers, they're the organisers.
Yes.
Whereas where Luai and Cleary work well together is Cleary was the organiser, but Luai was the guy that was just superb at playing what was in front of him.
Yes.
It was a bit like Souths used to be when we had Adam Reynolds and Cody Walker. Cody Walker was always at his best when he had Adam Reynolds inside him. Reynolds was giving the structure, and then Cody would just he'd have the magic dust that would just make stuff, but he would build off the structure that Reynolds gave.
Yeah.
Whereas you can see like when Cody has to organise, he's not as good.
Not great. Yeah.
And same with Luai. Luai is not an organiser. Luai is an instinctive player.
Yes.
They need an organiser with them, and the two of them make each other better. With Cleary and Moses, you have two standout halves, but they're both generals. And you see when the like Walker and Luai would always play second fiddle to Reynolds and Cleary.
Yeah.
Whereas Moses and Cleary are both used to being number one.
That's right.
So it depends on how well they'd work together.
Yeah.
I'd be interested to see.
Well, I think there's I'm honestly, personally, I'm not a fan of Moses.
Right.
But
Is that 'cause
I'd
he
be
plays for
silly to
Parramatta?
say a little bit, a little bit. It also has to do with the fact that he chose to play footy over being at the birth of his of his child. But I just don't think I'm like, come on, man.
Yeah.
But anyway, but I'd be silly to say like he doesn't deserve an Origin jersey. So I think that you lose something defensively if you put Moses over Luai.
Yeah.
Because I think seeing Penrith this year has really made me realise, and seeing Tigers has made me realise how good of a defender Luai is that I never noticed before.
Yeah.
But Mitch Moses started as a 5'8" at Tigers when he was playing next to Luke Brooks. So he can play 5'8", but I also think, yes, they are both organisers, but if you look at Queensland when they went on their like 8 in a row or whatever, they had, and when they were dominating, they had Jonathan Thurston and Cooper Cronk in the halves, and Thurston was an outright 7, Cronk was an outright 7, but then, I mean, at the time, Thurston started off also as a 5'8", but at Cowboys he took over as the halfback, as the number one, and I mean they were both organisers, but Thurston had that. He sort of like knew his place in the Queensland side. Was Cronk was halfback. Yeah. So I just think it could be possible.
Work. It could work. Yeah.
Yeah, that Moses and Cleary go, but I don't know. I don't know.
I'm not going to like if they go Cleary Luai or Cleary Moses. I'd say we have a good halves pairing.
Yeah.
We have a good halves pairing. No, I'd be happy with either.
Yeah, same.
So
as long as we win.
As long as we win.
Really throw Adam Reynolds back in there.
One of the, you know what? Game 3 of Origin last year was one of the most cathartic experiences I've ever had as my life as a sporting fan. So I've gone through nearly a decade of Queensland just belting us and belting us and belting us. Yeah. And it was getting depressing. Yeah. It was getting depressing. And I was getting to the point, like my feelings towards the Queensland Origin team, because it was like bordering on nearing having to go to confession. Yeah. Like it was getting like I was getting so worked up, and I was getting so, and I was getting over investing in this thing. But Origin, it's bigger than like it's bigger than even than club footy. Like it's everything, and and then the fact that we were able to go to Queensland, go to Brisbane, and out Queensland in front of their home crowd was just an absolute watershed moment. And I teared up like watching that game because at that, was it 2-0 at halftime in the game? I think it'd been like one penalty kick or something. It was like the lowest scoring. Oh, yes. Yeah, but at the same time, it was anything but boring. Yeah. It was so engrossing. You were riding on every tackle in every set. It was like these two heavyweights that were giving no quarter to each other. Yeah. And the pressure was just building and building and building and building. And you're just like, one team is going to break. Who is it going to be? Because neither team looked like breaking. Yeah. There were twos where New South Wales were dominant, Queensland were keeping us out. Then Queensland got up, and then New South Wales were keeping Queensland out. And then finally, it was that try that came from nothing, where the pass that fell behind. Then Luai had to run back, pick up the ball, turn around, and then suddenly he sees some daylight, bursts through a gap, puts it out to Bradman Best, who then runs down. And then when Bradman went over the line, it was like this weight just came off, and just like, Queensland blinked first. It was that in Queensland. That doesn't happen. Yeah. And we scored. And then, of course, Moses goes over like very quickly after, and we go bang, bang. And then when Moses went over the try, I suddenly went, my God, I think we're going to win. Yes. I think we're actually going to win. And then Zach Lomax, who was just incredible with the boot. It was just, that was...
They took the penalty kick, didn't they, from the sideline?
Yeah, penalty kick. That's right. That was the psychological thing. He took the penalty kick from the sideline to get us on the board, and then he drilled it.
That was insane.
It was insane. And that was, oh my gosh. I enjoyed that game more than the 50-6 thrashing we gave Queensland a couple of years before.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. I am with you on that. That was the greatest thing. We were at my brother's house watching. I will never forget that experience. Yeah. Kids are all asleep. I'm like, even though my brother's like, they're all right. Like, we can make noise, but I'm always like a bit hesitant. I don't want to wake the kids up. And it was as if they weren't even there. I was like getting up, I was yelling, I was like, I can't help it. It was such a good experience. But yeah, Origin's next level. There are so many. I'm coming to realize, I don't know who I was saying this to, but I'm coming to realize that there are so many, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know, connections is what I'm going to go with. Connections between footy and the faith that I never noticed before. And I'm like trying to write articles now and see if there is a connection somewhere. And the more I look for it, the more I'm like, wow, there's actually, you can learn a lot about the faith
Yeah, through
sport
Yeah.
and like through footy in particular, even the small things that you don't pick up on. Like I wrote an article about how the Raiders players that got in a punch on in Vegas this year. And then they came out and just apologized and moved on. They just played the game, and they go, when they get back to Australia, they'll, they'll cop some sort of punishment, and that's it, move on. And I was so taken aback by that, because I was like, that's so different to what we usually see.
Yeah.
There's like usually weeks of speculation, even months. There's only ever speculation, and you never hear about what actually happened. Clubs just deal with the players internally, and then media goes crazy about what could have happened and all that stuff. But the Raiders came out, Ricky Stewart came out. Apparently he reached out to a journalist, or I don't know if it was the other way around, but then he just completely opened up about the situation, then came out in front of the media and spoke about it, was completely open about it, apologized for it. Then the two players came out and spoke about it and apologized for it. And then it was like, and it was gone. Everyone was okay after that. It was like, all right, all good. And I was like, what about that took me, like kind of shocked me. Like, what was it about that? And it was just that they didn't try and hide anything. They just came, owned up, said sorry, and then moved on. And I was like, that's a really valuable lesson about our faith. It's like, firstly, we're trying to hide it from God.
That's right.
who knows infinitely more than the media will ever know about a situation.
Yeah, knew everything that was going on inside and out.
Yeah. But then it's like, it's own up, say you're sorry. That's what we have confession for. Yeah. And then get on with your life. And look how well the Raiders were able to get on after it. They won their game against the Warriors convincingly.
Yeah.
And that's a sign of how rewarding our, like, not petition, what is the word I'm looking for? Repentance.
Repentance, yeah.
There we go. Far out. Petition. Our repentance. That's how rewarding our repentance can be.
Yeah.
It's just owning up, saying sorry, like being sorry.
And starting again.
And
which is the essence of the Christian life. It's
yes.
starting again and starting again and starting again.
Yeah.
I believe that sport also has an ability to, on a wider sense, sort of express the spirit of a place. And I think one of the reasons why the NRL is so popular in Sydney and Brisbane, let's just take Sydney for example, is that competition, I think, embodies the spirit of the city. Because every tribe that exists in Sydney in some way, shape or form finds itself expressed in the NRL. All the clubs all represent distinct regions of the metropolitan area that all have their own character, that have their own history, that have their own colours that they're associated with, and people really invest in that, and they're able to make a direct emotional connection between the team and the life that they live and where they are, or at least how they've grown up. So that's why you'll have like fans that are rusted on to their clubs, even if their clubs are awful, over and over again. So the NRL has that. The spirit of Sydney, I think, is really captured in the NRL in exactly the same way as you see the AFL is in Melbourne. You go to Melbourne, and there is 100% like the capturing of the spirit of Melbourne, and Victoria is in the AFL. That's why they're so invested. And a lot of the other sports don't do that the same way. Rugby union's big problem is that they do not have a professional local competition that fans can really get into. So they're always struggling. The A-League in soccer, it began really well, and I thought they did the right thing by making the teams non-ethnicity based. Which they had to, sort of to quell like a lot of the tensions and the violence and the nonsense that goes on at a lot of soccer games. But even that is still like it had this huge beginning. Like those early derbies between Sydney FC and the Western Sydney Wanderers were like amazing. It was like, wow, we got a bit of Europe has come to, but even that's kind of like died off a bit too. Right. It's not as big as it used to be. Yeah. But the NRL, that sort of held strong, and the AFL has too. So, I think there is a certain, you touch something of the essence of a place when you look or you follow at the sporting competition that is most popular. Yeah. There. So
that's a great way to look at it too.
That's the way I feel about it anyway.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Because I remember talking to a couple of Italian boys up in when I was in Ryde, and they were like soccer fans. Well, big. So I said, who do you follow in the A-League? They go, we don't follow the A-League. I said, we've all got teams. Like they follow teams in the Premier League and teams in the Serie A. Yeah. And they said, but they were both passionate Tigers fans. Like they follow the West Tigers. And I said, well, how come you follow the Tigers, but you don't follow an A-League team? You follow European soccer teams. They gave me a very good answer. They said, because when we follow the NRL, we know we're watching the best competition in the world for that sport. Whereas the A-League is not the best competition in the world for football or soccer. Yeah. So that's why we follow the European clubs that are bigger and have got better competition, more tradition and history. So,
that's a really well thought out answer.
Yeah. So these guys were saying, they said, we know when we're watching the NRL, we are watching the best rugby league in the world. So we invest in that competition.
Yeah, that's actually really clever. Yeah, the A-League has some work for sure. Some work to do. Yeah. I used to watch the A-League. And then it's exactly it. It just dies out. Yeah. But NRL is a constant. Yeah. AFL, I can get into the AFL during finals. Mm. But during the season, for some reason, I just can't follow along.
I tune in and out. Yeah. Was still one of my favourite sporting highlights just in general. Like all the footy highlights is the, was it the semi-final, 2005, Sydney Swans versus Geelong at the SCG, sellout crowd. This was, and Geelong had led the game from start to finish. The Swans had never been in front all game. We're chasing in front of our home crowd, and then all of a sudden, in the second half of the final quarter of the game, one player stood up, a guy called Nick Davis, and he kicked 4 incredible solo goals in a row to win us the game in the dying seconds. Like he kicked 3 and then he bagged his 4th with it was like literally seconds on the clock, and put the Swans ahead. So we won, then got into the preliminary final, then got into the grand final, and then of course played the West Coast Eagles, and then Sydney Swans won their first ever premiership. And that year. But if you go onto YouTube afterwards and just look up like Nick Davis 2005 versus Geelong, the way the commentator, he was going ballistic. He was like, I see it, but I don't believe it. The crowd is going. And I have never, and Sydney fans, we're compared to Queenslanders or Victorians, we're actually pretty mild. We don't go as nuts as some of the other parts of Australia do, but the crowd that night, as Father Ronnie would love to say, they were losing their minds. and that's what they were. They were losing their minds.
I love that. That is so good. I want to be, the best sporting experience I've had is at the cricket.
Yeah.
But it was the Big Bash.
The Big Bash, yeah.
But it was I grew up only really ever watching rugby league.
Yeah.
I love sport, so I would watch anything that was on, but I followed only rugby league. As I've grown older, I've come to appreciate cricket.
Yeah.
Darts. I love darts. That's the best sporting experience I've had was at the cricket. But the best little bit of sport I've watched is if you go on YouTube and you write best darts ever or something like that, or best darts leg ever. It's one of the greatest things you ever watch. Everyone's going nuts. The commentator's going wild because it was getting in 9 darts. Anyway, but it was at the Big Bash. It might have been, I think it was a semi-final or something against Brisbane. I don't know. I'm saying it's the best experience, but I really
Yeah.
I'm
Was
like,
it the Sixers or the
Sixers. I'm a Sixers supporter.
Yeah, me too.
Oh yes.
Yeah,
that's
me
the
too.
way.
So, well, I haven't talked. Yeah, I haven't talked at all. But cricket, I played more cricket than I played rugby. But
really?
Yeah. But anyway, but
Are you a natural athlete? You just play everything?
no. I mean, no, not really. I mean, it was okay. My brothers were better. My brother, I had a brother. I have a brother who's 15 months younger than me, and his mission in life was to be better than me at everything I did. And he succeeded. Yeah, he succeeded absolutely. But yeah, so you're at the
crazy.
Sixers, and
Yeah, and I had got Father Roddy was with us, thank God, because
Yeah.
it was when I was like starting to get into it. So he was really good to have to explain everything to me. And I remember him saying to me, "You haven't appreciated the sport of cricket until you've gone and watched like live."
yeah,
So I was like, okay, whatever. I get there, and the speed at which they're bowling,
yeah,
the speed at which they have to react, the speed at which they hit, the precision, everything about it is incredible. Yeah. Like, my appreciation for cricket has skyrocketed ever since going to that game. But it was like, last over, Sean Abbott and I can't remember who else is, they're batting for the Sixers. It's like, it's something like, in the previous overs, it was ridiculous. We thought we were out of it, but then in the last over, it was like something like 12 runs from 6 balls or something. So we're like, oh, it's possible. But whoever we were versing were bowling so well. So we're like, oh, we don't know. It was just, it was wild. Anyway, it gets to the last, we're like riding that over with the players. Like we were going crazy. The crowd was like insane. Yeah. And then it gets to, this is the worst explanation. I'm so sorry, but it finally gets to the last ball. We need 2 runs to win. So we're like, now we're comfortable because we know at least we're going to get the one to tie it up, and then we can go into
super over if necessary.
Super over, is that what it's called?
Yeah.
I'm still learning. And then so Abbott hits it, and it's like coming to exactly where basically we're sitting. It's like rolling on the floor, you know. He's sliced it so nicely, and he's like taken the first run, and then the fielder, he drops down to take it, and it just like kind of it just
goes through.
I don't know. It goes. Yeah, I don't know what happened, but he's kind of missed it, and it just goes between his legs. And the Sixers run for that second, and everyone got up, and we're going wild. And it just felt like the stadium wasn't sold out or anything.
Yeah.
But it felt like it was.
Yeah.
Everyone just got up, and the roar was crazy, and it was the greatest sporting experience, even though my memory of it is so poor. And it really didn't sound like it. It was the greatest.
We didn't know.
sporting
You can't
experience.
exactly remember what happened, but you do know how you felt.
Yes, yeah, and it was just, I'm so glad that was the one. It still is the only one I've gone to.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad that I went to that game. I think it was on Australia Day as well. It was like everything
nice.
just fits so nicely, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, like those experiences are crazy. I love them. Well, anyway, hopefully for your sake, the Rabbitohs can make the 8 this year. But
We'll see. We will see.
I hope so. Jamie Humphries.
Yeah.
Your halfback
he is good. As is Jai Gray, our little fullback, our pocket rocket.
Can I tell you my unpopular opinion?
You think he's overrated?
Yeah. Like, massively. I actually don't think he's... I mean, I know he can do great things. I know, like, he's a little X factor and all that stuff. But I'm a fan of the tall fullback.
Yeah.
The tall, strong fullback. Like the Tom Trebojeviches and even the Latrell Mitchells. I'm a fan of that. So like having Connor Tracy for the Bulldogs, for example, I'm like...
He plays
I
his
still
heart
get
out,
iffy.
Connor Tracy.
Yeah, I love him.
Yeah.
I love him. I think he's so good. But I still get so iffy about having him in... Like if I had the chance to sign a tall fullback, I would still for the Bulldogs. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know why I'm so uncomfortable with having a short fullback. It just
only because it's under the high ball, contested high ball
all the time.
You want a tall athletic fullback to be able to get up there.
It's just safe. Like it's just you just feel safer.
But then you have a look at Brian To'o. on the wing for the Panthers and the Blues. The guy's like comparatively a midget, sort of compared to other players. He's so short, but his ability to leap, and he is so aggressive in the aerial contest. Like he out jumps or out competes guys that are much taller than him.
Yes.
So
that Brian Toto is my only exception in the league, because I again with the wingers I like
you want tall athletic wingers too for the same reason.
For the same reason, it's just the safety, you know. Anyway, but so maybe a little bit of that bias is in my opinion of like it kind of motivates my opinion of Jai Gray.
Yeah,
but I just think like bring him off the bench, that's okay, but to play him in fullback over Latrell, I'm not a massive fan of. Yeah. Even though I think Latrell's a better centre than he is a fullback.
Yeah.
I just think
I
your
agree.
best option is to have Latrell in fullback, which not many people agree with me on. And he was leading the Dally M tally for like so long, Jai Gray. Yeah. So this season, so I really have nothing to stand on.
Latrell is occasionally brilliant,
yeah,
but usually underwhelming. Like he's like he can do like the win against the Roosters when he fired that cutout pass across like 4 or 5 Roosters defenders to put Isaiah Tass in the corner.
Yeah,
like that was just whoa. I mean, and that's like a totally Latrell play, and that's why people love him and things like that. But he is also the laziest fullback in the comp. Like you just watch him, he just ambles around, you know, at the back, and if he's sniffing, like if the Rabbitohs get like within 25 meters of the opposition try line, then all of a sudden he gets interested and he comes up. But man, if we're playing in our own half or things like that, he's just wandering around. And
so true. That's actually a great point.
Yeah,
yeah, that's true. That's true. You want a more consistently exciting Latrell Mitchell.
That's right.
Which we probably won't ever get, unfortunately. But yeah, but there are teams that I don't like, and then as soon as they become like the underdogs, I start supporting them. Yeah. And I'm sorry, I'm usually not a fan of the Rabbitohs at all.
Well, I'm pleased that we've got you on board this year.
But this season I'm like, let's go. Especially Jamie Humphries is like a player that I have.
You've got your eye on
all the time.
Yeah,
he's so exciting to watch.
Yeah.
Even though he's not doing all the flashy stuff, he's just a footy player. I love watching him. He's so good.
We'll see. It's a very interesting season.
Yeah, yeah. All right, guys. Does your foot roll in like mine, or maybe even roll out? Or do you just need general treatment for nail and skincare? For any problems with my feet, I go to MJ Podiatry. They're a mobile home visit network servicing all of Sydney, offering expert podiatry care for general treatments, sports injuries, custom orthotics, ingrown nails, and footwear advice, and offer NDIS and home care packaging. Visit mjpodiatry.com.au, call 0412 389 278, or email info@mjpodiatry.com.au to book your appointment today. Use code ATG10 for 10% off your treatment.
I didn't have time to talk about when we were here, but I got to actually, the crazy thing was just a couple of months prior to that, I got to be deacon for Pope Benedict the 16th. So it was a pretty ridiculous period. So for New Year's Eve 2012, we had solemn vespers for Mary, Mother of God. And I got to be next to Pope Benedict. We had Vespers, and then we had Eucharistic Adoration on the high altar of St. Peter's. There's 10,000 people in the Basilica. Then you have the Blessed Sacrament, Jesus in the monstrance on the papal altar. Pope Benedict is in front of Jesus, and I am literally right next to Pope Benedict praying with him in front of the...
Wow.
So that happened just 3 months before doing that.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
So you had...
And I got to meet Benedict after that. So we were talking, and it was in Italian, but I was basically saying to him, I said, Your Holiness, I come from Australia, and I come from Sydney, Australia. And he was like, Sydney, I was there. Like he was so
That's awesome.
And then I said to him, I said, Your Holiness, when you came out to Sydney, you stayed in Kenthurst Study Centre for a few days of rest before you began your official functions, and then there was this music concert that was given to you, classical music concert. And I said, the girl that played the viola and sang for you, that was my sister, because she got to do that.
Wow.
And he said, yes, I remember, and his eyes lit up, and then he squeezed my hand. He said, please say hello to your sister for me. And so I literally got to call home to tell my sister the Pope says hi.
That's incredible. Oh my gosh, that's incredible.
The Pope says hi.
That is insane. Oh,
yeah,
I love
that's,
that. The sad I like am so filthy that when Pope Benedict was Pope, I was younger. Like, I'm so devastated now that I believed all the mainstream media
About
stuff
him,
that they had about him.
Yeah.
And so I used to just think he was like the worst. And then I grew up. Yeah. Yeah, I thought he was bad because of all the mainstream media stuff. And then I grew up and figured out that the media is a joke, and and what Pope Benedict actually contributed to the church as bishop and then also as Pope. And I was like, and what he stood for, and I was like, I can't believe I fell for all of that while he was the Pope.
The Pope, yeah.
Like,
Oh, he was amazing. Absolutely amazing. Like for doctrine, no, it was basically clarity in church teaching, but also he's incredibly gentle man.
Oh, wow.
You know, even which completely belies his reputation as being God's Rottweiler, which was one of the nicknames the media used to give him. But
Yeah.
he wasn't that. Like he was an incredibly gentle man. You're asking like, I mean, he got given a very tough vocation to be head of the CDF, Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith. So you're the one that's responsible, basically, to ensure that the church always proclaims the truth of revelation with clarity in each day and age. So that often means giving clarifications on things. It means, making corrections if they need to happen and stuff. And but of course, the guy who's the head of the CDF will get the reputation of being like the Pope's doctrinal enforcer, you know. And you know how like in high school, the assistant principal is usually the one responsible for discipline. Yeah. So like the AP and the principal, they play good cop, bad cop. Like it's sort of that way. Well, yeah. If people used to like to see like a Pope good cop, head of the CDF bad cop. It would be like the way the media would like to portray it. Even though that's not how it's not how it works. But Benedict was, I think had to, from a man who was very shy, very softly spoken and stuff, was asked, to defend the church and to be put in the public eye, in a way that, he naturally wouldn't have wanted to be. Yeah. But he did it because he was asked, and he did it so well. Yeah. So, and he became a beautiful, and he caught everyone by surprise with his first encyclical. Here's God's Rottweiler, the doctrinal enforcer, and his first encyclical is Deus Caritas Est, God is love. And if you haven't read it, do yourself a favor. It is so beautiful.
Oh, wow.
So beautiful. And so easy to read.
That. Oh, yeah?
So easy to read. God love him. John Paul II should be John Paul the Great. He is amazing, but John Paul is not always easy to read. Yeah. Whereas Benedict, he's so clear.
Wow.
Yeah, so he's my favorite theologian.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
I love that. That's so good. I'm gonna actually go and read that.
Yeah, Deus Caritas Est. It was the very first. Came out would have come out about 2006. Yeah, so it would have been it was his first encyclical as Pope.
I love that. As God's Rottweiler. he came out with God is love.
Yeah.
I love that. That's so good. All right, well let's
go to it.
Let's get into what or the main topic, I guess, for why we're here.
A little bit in?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Okay, so I'm so glad that you agreed to speak on this, because I was really looking for someone to speak on this topic, because it means I don't know fully why this kind of means so much to me yet. I'm still trying to figure it out. But the sanctity of life really means so much to me. Like personally, and it should, I guess it should to everyone, but
yes.
But I guess when I first heard about some of the moral issues surrounding life, I was so taken aback, because I thought, even though I didn't know my faith well, even though I didn't know the extent of the moral issue that well, just upon hearing it, for example, the first time I heard about abortion was in year 7, in our Catholic studies class, and it was just explained. The teacher hadn't even told us about the Catholic teaching on it yet. She hadn't told us her stance on it or anything like that. She just explained what it was. And I remember being so unsettled by it. And I was like, that does not sound right. Like, there was something so naturally pro-life, I guess. Like something that just seemed so off about anything that wasn't for life. And so when I learned that, I started to look into more things, and it's something that I try and be understanding of other positions and things like that, but I struggle when it comes to the issues regarding life to see how anyone could be on the other side, you know? So I thought we'd start off very broadly, if that's okay, speaking about what the church means when it talks about the sanctity of life.
Sure. Well, that's a great. It is in this day. It's always a fundamental question of importance, but in this day and age, it's become all the more urgent for the church to proclaim the sanctity of life. You said something very important before, that, you know, when you first heard about abortion when you're like year 7, or so, you like it deeply unsettled you, and you realized that, look, because every part of you was naturally pro-life, and you've just articulated a very fundamental reality. We are all born pro-life. The default position of every human being is to be pro-life. For someone to be anti-life, something has gone wrong. Something has gone wrong, because it is unnatural to be anti-life. Everyone wants to be pro-life. We just think of how our self-preservation is inbuilt, how even our instinct to preserve others at times is inbuilt. Like if you see, like just think of a simple thing, like you're walking along, you see like an old person like trip and fall. Your first instinct is to run to them, you know, to look after them. It's like it's a natural thing, is to preserve life. So at the very core of our being, we have this sense, this understanding that life is good. Life is good, and it is a wonderful thing that we're here. Like, you don't need to tell a child that, you know, like a child doesn't usually, you know, like won't question its existence. It just rejoices in the fact that it's there, you know. That's the thing. But as pain, suffering, darkness in different ways and forms enter people's lives, then that vision or that clarity of the goodness of life becomes clouded. But we can only become anti-life if our vision about the goodness of life has been somehow obscured. I think that's but that obscurity can take over an entire culture. It can take over an entire culture, which is what John Paul II spoke so clearly about through countless writings and teachings and homilies and stuff, that a culture of life can be replaced by a culture of death, where we even start to indoctrinate people from a very early age that it is okay, not simply okay, but even good to be anti-life. So what does the church mean when you talk about the sanctity of life? Well, already that speaks of something that's even greater than simply life is good. But the sanctity of life says that life is holy. Life is holy. Now, when the church speaks about the sanctity of life, it's doing so quite specifically. It's talking about human life. Because human life and human existence, indeed human beings, are of an order of magnitude greater than other living creatures that are here on earth. Now, unashamedly, if people want to turn around and call the church, you know, as being like the worst purveyor of speciesism, you know, that there is, well, so be it. Because, human beings, through no merit of their own, have been gifted an existence that is of a greater quality and depth than any other living creature on earth, even the most clever or intelligent primate or ape. Now, why is this the case? Well, the church would say it's because every single human being is created with an immortal soul. All right. Now, okay, for someone who doesn't believe in, well, who doesn't know what do you mean by an immortal soul? Well, we have to look at human beings in general. We are the only creatures on earth for whom our existence is even a question, who have even been given the power to ask themselves the question, why do I exist in the first place? No other animal does that. No other animal does that. An animal just gets on with being. All right, human beings, we've been given this ability, this power, to actually look and realize that I am not the source of my own being. We have been, out of all the creatures on earth, we have been the only ones that have been given the power to go back and seek our Creator. We are the only beings in the universe, in the physical universe, that are what the Latin theologians called capax Dei, meaning capable of God. And we've been given that intelligence so that we may find God. Or, as we see in the church, that God will find us, but we will recognize him when he comes calling. And in short, human life is holy because we have been made to be in relationship with God. Right? And so you're now treading on sacred ground. This isn't someone who has simply been made to be a creature of God. You're dealing with a life that's been made to be a friend of God. And the powers that we see in the human person, our qualities of self-knowledge and self-transcendence, which therefore give our acts a moral quality in the way that animals' acts do not have a moral quality, mean that there is that there are powers at play, there are characteristics of the human person which are not material, that are and that point towards the eternal. And literally every single person has written into their heart, into their immortality. Like we're repulsed at the fact that we have to die. Animals aren't. They don't question death. I mean, do they experience a certain sadness? Yes, they do. They experience loss, but not to the degree that we do. We're repulsed at the fact we have to die. No one likes the fact that we get old, right? No one, the powers that we've been given, we seek to hang on to because we realize that they're good, that there is something tremendous here, and we hate the possibility of losing those things. But as the church points out, that these powers that we've been given don't simply point to this life, because they speak of realities that transcend the physical. And therefore it points to the fact that you and I, and indeed every other person that's been created, has been made ultimately for eternal life and not simply life here on earth. Therefore, the church reverences every life, every human life that comes into the world as a sacred gift from God. That life is holy because it doesn't simply come from the physical parts that go to make it up, but also that God intervenes directly in the creation of each human life by giving that little boy or girl, that new person, a immortal soul. Which is why the church defends with all its might life from conception until natural death. And there is no other place you could legitimately say that life begins. Every other time where you have doctors and other professionals and pro-choice advocates like tying knots around themselves to come up with definitions of when human life begins. But the reality is that the biological facts are undeniable, that from the moment of conception, a new life begins in the womb of the mother. A life that is, yes, it's dependent on the mother to survive, but it's nevertheless distinct from the mother. And that is so important. It's dependent on the mother, but it is distinct from the mother. Which is why it's a lie. It is why it's a lie to say my body, my choice. Because we're not just talking about the mother's body. But we are talking about the life and the body, however small, of the new life that has begun in her. So from conception until death, until natural death, preferably. The church defends life as a gift from God. So that's why it's holy.
That's incredible, because I think a lot of what I hear now, especially at work and in sort of the corporate sort of spaces and things like that, like it's almost as if people value the lives of their pets more than the lives of the people around them. And there seems to be like a more of a reverence towards, animals and things like that among certain people. Like, you know, it's not obviously not everyone, but towards animals than towards humans. And there's a more respect for there's more of a respect for their life than there is for the life of a human. And I think there seems to be like this, I don't know if it's an intentional confusion or if it's a genuine confusion, but when you talk about like abortion rights, euthanasia rights, whatever they like to sort of name them, reproductive rights and whatever, what you said at the start was powerful, because it is life is fundamental, and that right is the fundamental right, and you can just say that, but it's become sort of a passing comment now, is, well, the fundamental right is the right to life. But it's not just a passing comment. It's, you don't have any other rights unless you have life first. And then you can talk about the rest of the rights and whatever. And I don't think, unless you'd like to, but I don't think there really is a need to discuss any further where life begins, because I think it's pretty clear that life begins at conception. Yeah. Do you think, just a side note or question, specific to moral issues, is it invalid, I guess, to have your opinion on moral issues completely motivated for Catholics by the faith? Like, do you need to know that you're against abortion and euthanasia and whatever else for reasons that aren't related to God, for example?
Well, I think look, all the church's moral teachings, that we can see sort of in the light of grace and stuff, actually make sense from a human point of view too. You can successfully argue, I think, for any of the church's moral positions on things using almost exclusively human or natural arguments. Why? Because the natural law is created by God too. So it's so whether someone believes they may not understand necessarily like the natural reasons for why something may or may not be wrong, but they know the church teaches it, so I follow it. Okay, well they've gotten to the right conclusion at the end. But I think for every person that they should be, ideally, they should have like the fullness of the reasoning, like why both from a from our faith point of view, and then also from a human or natural point of view, because you see how the two go together. And you'll see that actually good natural morals always are assumed into Revelation and the faith. They're not contradictory. So, I would, but at the same time, I think it always helps if you know all the reasons for why the church teaches anything. Because especially in this day and age, people will challenge you on why, because a lot of it is countercultural. Because that anti-life culture has really become quite embedded. And even in Catholic schools, tragically, it's really, really, it's reared its ugly head, and it pervades classrooms. So, so I think, the more the more you know from every perspective, the better.
Cool. So just to get back to the question I was going to ask, before, in saying that, life begins at conception, that's, no need to really go further into
that.
Yeah, into that. But why does the church see the life, even from conception, as sacred, knowing that like the body isn't as formed or developed as we know it and things like that? And like you said, I love what you said in that it's dependent on the mother, but it's distinct from the mother as well. Why is it so sacred even then? And in turn, why is a life that, and this kind of goes to the question I asked the fathers last week, or 2 weeks ago, whenever it was, even looking at someone with disabilities or with whatever special needs that they have, or someone who's terminally ill, fully dependent on machines to keep them alive and things like that. Why are all these types of life as sacred as another?
Okay, well, that's a very important question too. So we recognise that there is something that even with people with disabilities and everything, that we share something that goes far deeper, that goes beyond mere functionality. We share something common, which is our human nature. There is a human nature that gives us a solidarity and a bond and a union with every other creature that shares that nature, no matter how high their level of functioning is. Which is why our instinct is always to care. We have that, as I said, it's a natural thing to be pro-life. And looking after those who aren't as able, or who are more disabled, or have more challenges, physical or mental. Like, we see there is an innate instinctive responsibility that I, who am blessed to be, have all my faculties or whatever, that person's life presents a moral call on me, to look after them, like to give them what they need. Now, why would this person why would this life, that does not have as high a level of functioning as my life does, present me with a moral call? And that is because the way we've been made, and you see it reflected. This is so beautifully and so powerful, and the way we're called to come into existence. All right. Modern society right now views human life, or tends to view human life, in a highly functional or utilitarian point of view. Your life has value insofar as you can contribute to society. All right. But your value to society, your social credit, if you goes down, the more disabled or less functioning you become. And that has a tendency, when it views people like this, and this is a symptom really of the hyper individualism that's pushed by our modern materialistic society. But because it is so individualistic, it tends to view every single person kind of as an island. And their value comes in your ability to contribute, look after yourself, create wealth, do whatever. But once you stop doing that, then the tendency, or the underlying tendency of the world, is then to start to see you as a burden. All right, you're a burden, and then you rapidly go from being a burden to just being a waste of space. It's a brutal way of putting it, but unfortunately, that is a view that is growing. It's getting ever more and more strong. But the human person, how do we come into being? We don't get delivered by a stork. We don't drop out of the sky. But the natural way of coming into being, and this will touch on so many other things, but the fact is that a human life comes into being as a result of an act of complete self-giving on the part of a man and a woman. It's to say, I'm yours. The sexual act has built into it, unlike any other act of love that exists, it has built into it a unity and an exclusivity. It says, I'm yours alone, and I'm yours for life. And people go, well, how does it all, why, how do you know that sex says all of that taken in? Well, look, even if I was to get two teenagers from like my local high school who boyfriend and girlfriend, and I know that they're, having sex or whatever, and I say to them, how would you feel if you found out your boyfriend or your girlfriend had gone and slept with somebody else? You'd be, I'd be so cut, I'd be so hurt and stuff. And well, why? I mean, have you promised to be with this person for the whole of your life? No, you haven't. Then why does it hurt so damn much if you found that this person's gone and done this one act with somebody else? The exclusivity part of it, that permanence part, is written into the act. Why? Because the act expresses a sharing, a part of myself that is utterly unique to me. Like, you think of all the men in the history of the world, Anthony, only you will be able to have your children. Like, without, wanting to be too crass or anything, but like your sperm is unique to you. No other man produces what you produce, okay? Like, that's it, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And the thing is that like, a man's wife, like the eggs she creates within herself are unique to her. They express that gift of our fertility is an offering that it is something that no other man or woman has given or could ever give. It is an expression of the unique, unrepeatable love of this individual, right? And then those two loves come together. And then because of that offering of that part of me, I am sharing the most intimate part of myself with somebody else. And that gift, that sharing is so radical that it is tied to the creation of something unquantifiably even greater, which is that of a new life. And that child, where it comes in, is completely and utterly unique and unrepeatable as well. But it could only have come into existence because of the love and the self-gift of its father and its mother. It is literally the walking, talking, living, breathing, unique and unrepeatable love of its parents. Okay? Now, if you look at it, just leave contraception and everything aside, just purely in the natural scheme of things, what is the one thing, if you like, the one thing in the sexual act a couple can't control? It's the moment of conception. And that's very deliberate on the part of God. They're like the anthropological meaning of everything. I mean, it's just that the whole way we're created and everything is just saturated with us as being made in the image and likeness of God. Okay? We talk about the sanctity of life. We realize there's something extraordinary. We realize that life is a gift. And there is a reason God has made pregnancy not automatically follow sex. But the possibility of it happening only occurs within a certain defined window each month, more or less, in the cycle of the woman. And then even then it may not happen, right? But the reason it does not follow sex automatically the way night follows day is because the child is meant to be received as a gift and it is not the end product of an act. Wow. All right? So, because if it was to automatically follow, then sex would literally just be baby making. Like if if pregnancy automatically followed sex, well, there'd be a lot less sex happening, probably for a start. Okay, but here's the other thing: is that but isn't this wonderful? Isn't this wonderful? Like, so the child's meant to be received as a gift, but how is it received as a gift? It's received as a gift in the context of its mother and father being willing to express physically every time their marriage vows, which says, I will love you and honor you all the days of my life, in good times and in bad, in sickness and in health. So when a married couple engages in the marital act, when they have sex, they know that pregnancy may not follow. I mean, they may love it, they may want it to follow, or they may even be thinking, well, maybe now is not absolutely the best time. But nevertheless, what they're saying to each other in that moment is their marriage vows in act. And the reason it's their marriage vows in act is because there is this inherent or intrinsic openness or orientation towards the creation of new life every time, even if that new life doesn't necessarily result afterwards. So then the child comes into being, okay? And the child in the womb, it's incredibly vulnerable, but it's distinct from the mother. It's utterly dependent on the mother, and there should be no space more sacred on earth than the womb of a mum. Like there is, and look, it's a biological gift given to women that us men can only stand back and admire. Like we have no idea what it means to bond and to be that close to a child, what it means to have a life within us. Like seriously, like, I mean, there is nothing closer to have another life growing inside you, and everything about the way women are made is oriented towards that biological reality, is to welcome life. And once again, especially being a woman, you could see in that being there is a natural orientation towards being pro-life. It takes indoctrination. It takes indoctrination, and it takes a culture to steer women and men away from that natural orientation of their life. So then the child grows, and it's welcomed as a gift. It's received. Now here's the other thing: the child has to be received as a gift, is because mum and dad also don't know what or who that life is going to be. They don't know if it's going to be a boy or a girl. They don't know what color hair it's going to be, what sort of personality it's going to have, and also what challenges it's going to bring. Is it going to be a child with special needs? Or is it going to be super healthy, super intelligent, super athletic, whatever, everything that secular society would say is great, they don't know. But the reason that the child is received as a gift, at least it's meant to be. It's meant to be received as a gift. And then who is better placed to welcome and to love and to nurture a child with challenges, with special needs, than its parents that have gone in to create it? No one. God's designed it that there would be a man and a woman that are emotionally, personally, and biologically invested in the well-being of this child, however it comes. And because this child, as disabled as it may be, is still a sharer, a complete and full sharer in our common human nature. Okay, its functionality may not be at the level that we would have liked or loved, but it is still a gift, and it is still a human life, and therefore it is not someone, not something, but it's not someone who can be simply disposed of. And I think this goes to a really important point. What would you say are some of the most important secular virtues that we have that get preached? I mean, literally preached in the media, in our schools, through our culture, through our music. They would be the words tolerance and acceptance. Two words that on the face of it sound good. Tolerance and acceptance. Okay, now we have that, those two words that are as I said, preached, literally like preached everywhere. You go, tolerance and acceptance. But how can we call, and we will never be, a tolerant or accepting or welcoming society until we stop literally eliminating, killing lives that we do not deem to be worth living before they get a chance to see the light of day. Like the number of kids, they get screened for Down syndrome. And then the parents are not simply told, we have the option of aborting. So, well, we recommend that you terminate. This child may have cerebral palsy, spina bifida. Like, I mean, like you're talking at this stage, we're talking about conditions where a person can have a fully cognizant life, okay? Yes, they might have physical challenges, but we're talking about a child and ultimately an adult that is going to be able to receive and understand the love that's been given to it and even give it back, and you want to stop that just because they don't fit your mold of functionality or utilitarian value. And this is what the culture of death that Pope John Paul II used to speak about so much pushes, is that it says that there are certain lives that are not worth living. And I think that a lot of the times when we, when society gets worried about, oh, look, this person's life is not worth living, or they're going to be suffering very much, where it's actually self-referential. It's like, no, I can't deal with their suffering. Yeah. And I think that is the case some of the time, right? I think it is telling to about a society being naturally pro-life that we accepted abortion long before we accepted euthanasia. Because abortion's kind of hidden. It's something that takes place behind closed doors. We don't get to very often see the physical and even the deep emotional and spiritual effects that come as a result of it. But euthanasia, this phenomenon of people having a right to talk about rights, a right to die. It's so funny. On one note, we say that all these people don't have a right to live, but we do have a right to die. I mean, it really shows you how society has turned, how unnatural it is now from being pro-life, which we all are instinctively, to now becoming anti-life. What people often come back with, and this is where I need to also be very, I want to be very, very clear. The church, like the sanctity of life, this does not downplay that women who go and, have abortions, or that people that think about ending their lives through voluntary assisted dying, it's not to downplay that they're not in a very hard place. Okay, it's not because like one of the big things I get often from Catholic women who will tell me, they say, I would never personally get an abortion. Never. No, they will say that. I've heard it many, many times. I'll never get an abortion. But I could never judge a woman that does get one. And I understand where that position is coming from. If a woman feels the need to go get an abortion, very often that speaks to a failure on the level of society. That the culture isn't there. That, okay, what you're now, for whatever reason, you might be carrying a life in less than ideal circumstances. But if society is telling you, yeah, let's solve the problem by eliminating the life, then at the end, all we end up with is one person dead and another person wounded for life. So it's, I know, I'm not pretending that, that it's easy. But what I thought was so beautiful about the dads that you had talking, especially was it the dad who had Emmanuel, the son?
Yes.
Now I thought
yeah,
why
Louis.
he was so powerful was because that little boy, society, like in its crass way, would call basically his functional state that of a vegetable. All right. But his mum and dad love him and care for him and look after him with even more attention, than they probably, then because they have to, than they would even give to their able-bodied and children. I mean, that is an extraordinary vocation, and very obviously, thank God, it's not one that's given to, it's not one that's given to everybody. Like that is a very, very extraordinary gift of love, and that mum and dad who are following it faithfully, that'll make them saints. That'll make them saints. Like they will be able to look God in the face and say, yes, we welcome this life. And we love that life as a gift. Even though from an emotional point of view and everything, that life didn't give us any of the normal consolations back. Now, this is something we can see through the eyes of faith. But can you imagine what the reunion in heaven will be like when Emmanuel meets his mum and dad? I mean, seriously, can you imagine what that's going to be like? Like, you loved me when I couldn't love. Like, that is so Christ-like. I mean, and that's, it's extraordinary. I mean, God bless that couple because they have been given, yes, it's a heavy cross, but that is a cross that goes straight to, that is a Good Friday that goes straight to Easter Sunday. And all they can do is carry it sort of like one day at a time. But as I said, if they keep going the way they're going, they're both going to be saints. That's it. And this is the thing, is that where faith is so powerful, and so important, is that it enables us to see things from both a supernatural perspective and an eternal horizon. As that the world, because it's so caught up in itself and isn't looking at God, sees problems as being absolute when they're only relative. Which is why it adopts absolute solutions. As one person, as one priest said to me once, you should never choose a permanent solution for a temporary problem. And that's what society. When you don't have that horizon of faith, then it does make it a lot more difficult for that. And if someone were to say, well, you can't go forcing your faith on people, so you can't go judging them for what they do. And it's like, I'm the last person to want to judge someone, or to understand the pain someone is going through. To pretend that I know, and I don't. We don't know, like, just how much anguish someone is in. But irrespective of whether you have faith or not, the solution that they're adopting is to end a life. And at the end of that, the person that's made that decision then has to live with that decision that they've made. Now, and that can be crushing. As a priest, I've seen some things. I would say the most traumatic thing I've ever seen as a priest was I got called to the hospital for what I thought I was being called to go attend a stillbirth. So baby died and been born, and then it was you'd been born dead rather than alive, and I was there to sort of comfort the family. But as it turned out, when I got there, I found out that actually the baby, yes, it was a stillbirth, but it was a stillbirth because the mother had taken the abortion drug to end that life, and was now in the situation. Now, there were obviously the baby was going to have health complications and stuff, and the couple had felt that they couldn't, or that it would be better off that this baby didn't live, which was, I think, was the way it had been explained to them. And in those moments of deep emotion and whatnot, that they've made a decision. And so, but they still called for me. Like they wanted a priest to come and attend. And I came into that room, and I saw the mother on the bed holding the baby whose life she'd essentially taken. And when I saw the little life there, I mean, it was a grace of God. I kept it completely cool. I was able to be, and it was a moment where I felt the real grace to be like really, really, really gentle with the couple. In the pain, it was just pain. Like you just want a room that was just filled with pain. That's just all around. It was that room. And anyway, I was there for I don't know how long, and I left and went out of the hospital, and I got into the car, and I completely broke down, like completely. I was a howling mess. I don't know how long, but I didn't just cry. I howled. I was so, I don't know, just so appalled by what I'd seen. I just wept and wept and wept and wept and wept and wept until I literally don't think I had any fluid left. It was just so. Anyway, and that, and in a situation like that, you, I mean, I still find it hard to talk about. But going back to your thing about being in year 7 and, first hearing about it, when you actually see the effects like firsthand, every fiber of my being was screaming, how can we think this is a good thing? How can we possibly think this is a good thing? And that's the side we don't often get to see because it's behind closed doors. So anyway, I'm not sure what my ultimate point was going to be, but
no, that's okay.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that experience. That's a heartbreaker. I can't even see like a sick child. It really like, because they're so vulnerable, and you want to do whatever you can to help, like in any situation. And like we were kind of touching on it last week, is like, if we see a problem, we're like, okay, what's the solution? How do we fix this? And there are cases where you just can't. But especially with children, because they're so vulnerable, it's like, I wish I could do something for you, but I can't. So even seeing a sick child, like really, it breaks my heart. But then that's like, yeah, on another level. I remember I think the saddest experience I've ever had was being at the funeral of a child who was a stillbirth. Like, because of the tradition, I'm not sure if this is necessarily a Catholic tradition or just Lebanese. I'm not sure. I've only ever been to one, but it was like, more of a celebration of the child than it was of the gift of the child, and please God, their entry into heaven than it was like the mourning of a death. So there's like a little bit of, we had the funeral, then outside there was a bit of a, like almost a celebration sort of thing. And that just broke me. Like that celebration was, I remember the father of the child was like, they had like Lebanese drums and they were playing it. I don't know, Lebanese are a little bit extreme like that. And the father was holding up the photo of his child who was a stillbirth. Like there was a photo of it, and he was dancing with it, but like he was bawling his eyes out, and people were dancing around him, so he was like kind of being danced by others. He wasn't doing it himself, and he's holding the child, and it broke me. Like, when I saw that, I was like, how could anyone voluntarily do that? Like, the pain that I saw the parents in, and obviously they didn't want their baby to die, but the pain that I saw them in was like, so it was just next level, and I don't think I'll ever experience anything like that. It was on another level, and like, yeah, I think I tend to be a little less charitable when it comes to things like this. Like I said before, like I struggle to understand where people come from, and it's a good reminder that people are for people to have a switch in their view of life from being pro-life to anti. There must be a great pain there that I'm not so empathetic with.
Look, I mean, this is the thing. So you also got to see our hearts and minds are limited in their capacity to understand, and certainly to understand the whole picture. One of the things that here's the other great gift though. So in having seen the tragedy of like abortion, or at least the results of it firsthand, and seeing the terrible things that it does, I can also say and here's the other great gift that we have in our faith, is that in confession, the healing that begins to take place. This is what the world won't tell you, and that's what I said before, is that with abortion, you end up with one life dead and one life severely wounded, and the grief and the wounds that these women carry are untold usually, but when they go to confession, they sometimes come. You can imagine, like you could just imagine, they could come thinking, if they've gotten to the point where they actually want to approach confession, you can imagine that they could be thinking that, how could I possibly be forgiven for this? But the reality is that there is no heart like the heart of Christ, and all the horror and the suffering that is tied up with abortion has also mysteriously been embraced by Jesus on the cross too, and in the garden, and that pain and that mercy is what's brought to bear on the heart, brought into the heart of that poor woman that comes, and it brings about, like, it's not, while it does the most important thing, and it brings forgiveness, and that's like but then there's an ongoing healing process. It's not like, they just go to confession and walk out and it's like it's all great. But the most important thing is they've been forgiven. That which is like the biggest and most important step. But then it frees them then to start the process of healing. And just while we're on that, I think many priests would probably echo this too. And we many priests will have probably heard the confessions of women who've had abortions many times. But one thing we probably haven't heard, or at least far, far less, is the confessions from men who have either forced or facilitated the women in their life having abortions. And that equally needs to have needs to be repented for, and they also need God's mercy, because that's going to be a real spiritual and psychological impediment to their fatherhood going forward, if that's not something that they get, ask for our Lord's mercy for, which He gives. And this is the thing: is our Lord gives it, and He gives it so readily. And that's why I'm encouraging, if there's anyone out there who is feeling tortured by something, by anything from their past, and if you are, of the Catholic faith or of the Orthodox faith too, go to your priest, go to reconciliation, and receive mercy like you perhaps never believed was possible. And mercy is going to be the thing that's the base of turning the culture around. Because as long as we feel, and there's a lot of people do, whether or not they believe in God, they can. The culture of death hardens hearts, and so people believe that, look, this is it. This is what I've done. This is who I am, and so I'm just going to keep plowing down this path, and that's a way, because that way I don't have to, grapple interiorly with what I've done. I just keep going, no, this is it. I comfort myself by telling myself that everything I'm doing here is good. And we can do that. We can be in denial. But mercy as a way of cutting through all of that. Mercy does not deny the wrong we've done. In fact, it shows it to us, in all its fullness, but at the same time, not in a way that crushes us. But rather we see it as the most extraordinary gift. And mercy, much like the gift of human life, is something undeserved and yet makes us unquantifiably richer as a result when it's received and when it's welcomed. So in the same way that, a couple, they welcome, they can welcome a new life with arms and also in humility and awe, It's like, how did we get so lucky to receive, a gift like this? A bit in the same way, when the soul opens itself up to our Lord's mercy, that it knows. It knows this is not because I deserve it at all, but because I am loved so much. And when I receive that love, that is what gives me the freedom. When I receive the love that Christ wants to give, when I'm at my lowest, when I feel at my most unworthy, when perhaps my self-loathing is through the roof, when I am touched by mercy there, then that sets my heart free to become the saint I was made to be. And every saint in their life story, almost all of them, had a profound experience of God's mercy, and that's what sent them on, and that's how we start turning the culture from one of death back to one of life.
Thanks so much for that, Father. That was beautiful. There's probably a good reason I'm not becoming a priest. It's because that love and mercy, that's so different, so unique, so profound, that you can't find anywhere else but in the Catholic Church, through God, of course, it's so evident through you. So thank you so much. I think so, even to go closer within, even like to forget that society, has these sort of thoughts about life, and they've kind of turned to a culture of death. I think it's really crept into even the Catholic Church. Like, even people I speak to, Catholics that I speak to, or Christians in general, don't even believe that life is good. And I guess that's based on the evil that they see around, like that we all see around us. But is there a difference between saying that life is good and, like, not is there a difference, sorry. can we still say life is good even though we, like, despite the evil around us? But then how can I say that I'm good despite the evil that I commit? Does that make sense? Like, am I still good even when I do horrific things? And
well, you have your moral, the goodness of your moral life, which is a direct product of your moral decisions, your choices, the free choices that you made. But then you've got your ontological good as a human being, and it's always good that you exist. And I think you see this sort of in the whole story of salvation. It's like, why does God leave us free? Why does he let us make mistakes? Why does God create? Well, why does, like, it kind of goes, why does God let bad things happen? Because at its first and foremost, life is the fundamental good upon which all other goods are built. Like, without life, there is no other good, right? Without existence, there is no. Okay, so we have to have that fundamental good. So, I mean, it's a funny distinction. Is it good that you are a person? Yes, it is. Are you a good person? Well, God ultimately knows. But God leaves us free. Like, God takes this risk, right? That he wants us to be able to love him freely. Like, this is why we talk about the sanctity of life. We are made, Kapak's day, we're made in the image and likeness of God. We're able to not only seek God out and be found by him, but then also to be in relationship with him, to love him back. And in order to be free to say, I love you, I also therefore have to be free to say, I won't love you, or I don't love you. Because otherwise, my life isn't, I can't make a gift of my life. Like, at the heart, a gift is always free. Okay? And getting back to that marriage point, you know, what a couple does, when they're standing in front of each other at the altar and exchanging vows, is what they're saying is that my life, I have received my life as a gift from God. And the greatest thing I can do with the life I've been gifted with is to make a gift of it to you. And the greatest gift I'm ever going to receive from another person to me is the gift of your life to me. And that gift is made in freedom, which is why the church is very clear. If a couple doesn't enter marriage freely, they haven't made a valid marriage. So it's the first question I have to ask every couple right before they exchange vows. Have you come here to enter into marriage without coercion, freely and wholeheartedly? And hopefully they will say, I have.
That's fair. Okay, so then, like, I love what you said before in that, like, don't give permanent solutions to temporary problems.
Yeah.
And that's what society is doing. Is that sort of the same thing when we're talking about, because I think I have experienced some within the Catholic Church, people within the Catholic Church is that there are more people than I thought there were who aren't necessarily pro-life, or they struggle at least, or whatever. Is that because, and they use that sort of example, is that, look at all the evil around you, people aren't good, or whatever. Like, and I wasn't aware that this was a thing until I got asked it so much. I don't know if anyone else has experienced this, but I've gotten asked, would it have been better for Hitler to have been aborted than for him to have lived and done what he did? And I think through the answer you just gave now, I'm kind of seeing, okay, so we're going one extreme, sort of, or the other is like, did he have to die so that he didn't have to do all those things? Or could there have actually been something?
Well, you see, it also, once again, I mean, it's a bit of a false, problem, in the sense that, like, Hitler Hitler, well, I mean, it's part of the horror of Hitler, but I mean, but he did what he did freely, as did Stalin, as did Pol Pot, as did, all these other horrible dictators, right?
Yeah.
They didn't have to do what they did.
Yes.
All right? They're not automatons, they're not robots that are just automatically going down there. Every single disaster began with, one bad choice after another, but freely chosen.
Yes.
You see, when Hitler was born, he had as much opportunity to become, a good person as he did a bad person.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay? So...
That's powerful. That's what I'm... because I've always been stuck on that thing is I don't know if for that question, for example, I know that I wouldn't have wanted him aborted, but I definitely didn't want him to do what he did.
Because I mean, I've heard an actual anecdote, and I don't know if this actually it was actually true, but that there was a British private in World War One, they were fighting, and it was he was on post, and he saw a lone German soldier sort of I don't know, doing something, fixing something or whatever, or walking. That's right, and he lined him up in the sights, and the guy, they weren't actually in a moment of combat, but it was just, he saw him and he thought, do I take him out? And he just thought, in an act of mercy, he's like, no, I'll let him go. And apparently he made his recounting and things and they worked out that actually the soldier that was walking along was Corporal Adolf Hitler, walking along, and he could have popped him in World War One.
What?
But he let him go. Apparently now this
that's insane.
So
but the solution isn't either that he dies or that he does what he did. It's the ideal would be that something in his life
the idea would have been that he lived a good life and didn't do what he did. Because my father had a great line. Which was maybe one of the beautiful reasons why I'm blessed with so many brothers and sisters, because his attitude was always, it's always better to exist than not.
I love that. That's powerful.
Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah, two great phrases. Lots of kids. It's always better to exist than not. So that's number one. But then his second line was, every child comes with a loaf of bread under its arm.
Oh, I've heard that.
Yeah.
That's
so
beautiful.
God doesn't just, the sense that he doesn't simply dump you with a life. But the child brings gifts into a home that only it can bring, and that God also will give the parents what they need to raise the child. It does not mean for a second he makes it easy, but that they will have what they need when they need it, whether that be material things at times, or sometimes it can just be the interior. Like resilience or patience or whatnot. Now, it may not feel like they're getting it in the moment, but the fact is they keep turning up one day after the other. So
this is a good point. Actually. Yeah. It's a great point.
But anyway, that was my dad's attitude, and so because of that,
that's you're one of 11.
Yeah. Well, I remember once one of my brothers cheekily, it was on Facebook. He put up a picture. It was of 101 Dalmatians. Like the Disney cartoons that cover all the 101 puppies, and then he just put hashtag because we're Catholic, and then one of my other brothers, they all look like one of was up near me because he's one of the younger boys that did it. He fired back very quickly. He said, "If Mum and Dad hadn't been Catholic, you wouldn't exist."
It's true.
Yeah,
it's
that's
true.
right.
Oh gosh, I think I've been around. I think that my stance on life is because I've just been brought up in that sort of, without it being something spoken about in the household. I think it's something that I just grew up with. I found out, not really long ago. It was relatively recent. It was when I got older that I found out that, when I was born, firstly, my parents only wanted 4 kids. I came out 5th. So I wasn't necessarily planned. Let's just say that. But they wanted me all the same,
Yeah.
and I wasn't an easy birth for my mum. I was actually like an emergency cesarean. And so I remember hearing that, so my mum's life was at risk at the time, and so was mine. And the doctors went to my dad, who was panicking, like, of course, as a good father would and a good husband. He was panicking, and they said to him, look, like, we need you to basically pick either your wife or your child in the case that we're not able to save both. And my dad looked at them and said, no, I want both. Like, and they said, yeah, we understand, but you've got to pick one. And then he said, he said, my wife, like, you know. And I knew I knew about that story. And that was I always joked around like what a terrible decision my dad made and stuff like that, you know, but a justified one nonetheless. But it was always just a joke, of course. And thanks be to God, you know, I was born and mum's alive. So we're good. But then my cousin had told me, so my, like I've got a bit of an older family. So my first cousins are all older. And so she was telling me she remembers when she was she remembers being at the hospital and seeing my dad at the time. And she said she'd never seen him like that. My dad was a really cool, calm guy. But at that time, she was saying to me, like, he was constantly pacing. He was in the chapel praying all the time. He was on his knees. Like, he was just constantly stressed. And I think that experience, just knowing that, and obviously the way that I'm not delusional. I know my parents aren't perfect. But the way I was brought up in a loving household, you know, with all the usual chaos of a family and all that stuff. It was never like, again, I didn't know about abortion until year 7. I didn't know about euthanasia until the same year, because we were on that topic until year 7. I didn't know that life was something that people weren't for, I guess. But I was always so for life because it was all I knew in my household. I guess that's just a long-winded way of asking the question: how important is it for parents? Not even to, I mean, I'm not sure where parents would be on discussing these topics with their children, and when you would do it and things like that. But how important is it for parents to ensure that the love between each other is evident in front of their children, but then the love for their children is evident? How important is that for their children to understand the importance of life and the sanctity of life?
100%. Like, the parents are the first educators of their children in everything, and especially the culture of life. I mean, the culture of life is founded and grown, strengthened, and it has life. And the culture of life lives. The culture of life lives in the family, in the home. That is the bedrock of the culture of life, is the family. And so the way parents love each other, the way they love their kids, the joy that they show at like a new child coming in, and like the excitement, and the brothers and sisters like getting all, I'm getting a baby brother or sister, you know, like how wonderful that is. Like that's where you learn, you know, the value of life. I mean, I think I first found out about abortion probably, when I was like in year 6 or something like that, about a similar age to you. And I remember being like, what? Who? What? How? You know, like, are you kidding? Like, what? Who would want to? Like, I was speechless. Like, it was like, I didn't have words. Like, even as a kid, you'd think, wow, what is better than life? Seriously, what is better than life? I remember asking my mum once, I said, oh, Mum, are we rich? because like I realized, you know, I never had as much stuff as a lot of my classmates in primary school. So it's like, Mum, are we rich? And she gave me at the time what I thought was a cop-out answer. She goes, oh, Dan, we're rich in kids. And I was like, that didn't really sort of satisfy me. And I went away, well, you could have been my brothers and sisters are like, you know, I wouldn't mind you know, like taking a couple of them back to the shops where you got them from, you know, like you'd be, you know, typical elder brother. But I come to realize that actually no truer words were spoken. Like the greatest gift we had was each other.
Wow.
That was the world. We were a very wealthy family. And still are. And now I've got, currently have 13 nephews and nieces, and numbers 14, 15, and 16 are all due this year. So,
wow, congratulations.
Yeah, so I'm just cheering them on. I've done nothing. No. Well, I get to baptize them once they're born. So that's very special. Yeah. But yeah, no, it's great. Like it's I remember actually having a tutor at who was helping me with some stuff in mid high school, and she wasn't religious at all, but she'd written a kid's book, and it's always stayed with me. It was called More Makes More. More Makes More, and it was all about like, you know, being more people, being more love, more whatever. And I remember I read this book as a kid, saying More Makes More, and it's always stayed with me, that line, More Makes More. And so with big families, yeah, it is more of everything. It's more chaos, it's more noise, it's more mess, but there's also more joy, and there's definitely more love. Definitely more love, you know, and an ability to absorb, you know, the blows and the challenges that come. I mean, even think simple economics. People go, how can you afford to have all these kids? Well, you only see kids as, you know, as consumers. You don't see them as contributors or producers. And you think like a big family, like mum and dad, well, they've suddenly got all these like earners, you know, before too long, in the home. Like after a while, my parents, they're my brothers and sisters, once they all got jobs and stuff, rather than pay like room and board at home, they would like take the house bills. So like one or two kids would look after electricity, you know, look after the hot water, you know, like that stuff. And that's it. Why? Because you've got all these people that are earning and supporting a common cause. And it also means that like, while one individual family may not have enough money, you know, to give certain presents to, you know, certain kids, but suddenly you've got all these aunties and uncles that are there. It's like, oh yeah, they need that present, and then everyone chips in a bit, and then you're able to give the gift that you want to give. Yeah. You know, so
I love that. I love that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I want to ask. Now I could keep going for ages, but I know you've given the day to this podcast, which I'm so grateful for. But I'm also cautious. I don't want to take up the whole day.
That's all right.
So
I'm actually going tonight with one of my brother priests to see the Accountant 2 at the cinemas.
What's that?
It's the Ben Affleck movie. He plays a guy. He's like an accountant, like who does high level accounting for people who perhaps get into a bit of trouble and stuff. And he's autistic. He's a genius, but he also is often has to protect himself and others from people that come after the money that he's responsible for looking after. So he's also a bit of an action hero too.
No way.
Yeah, it's very interesting. So The Accountant 1 was a great film, and now The Accountant 2's out. So.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
So, anyway,
I got to make sure you're out on time.
So.
Awesome. Well, then I want to ask you this last question, if that's okay. And it's on a teaching that I came across, a teaching of the Catholic Church that I came across, which has kind of developed, I guess, in modern times, in recent times, but I still struggled to understand. And I want to make this clear because I'm such an advocate for this. So I do want to make it clear. It's not something that I think the Catholic Church has it wrong and I have it right. I understand that I know less than the Church in all its wisdom and the authority given to it. And so it's just something that personally I just struggled to sort of coincide with its teaching on life. and it's the one on the death penalty, right? And so, I came across it initially understanding that the church was, in certain circumstances, okay with the death penalty. And then I think in modern times, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's like, it's essentially now that it's, there's really no case, not no, but there are very few cases in modern times where it would be necessary. But still it holds that if necessary, it's okay. If I've got any of that wrong, please correct me. But that I struggled to understand, because I was like, well, I thought we were fully pro-life. All life is sacred. No one has the right to take a life. All of those things. How did those two teachings, the sanctity of life and that?
Well, great question. Well, for a start, having spoken about the sanctity of life, and absolutely that life is holy, it is from beginning to end. Nevertheless, you're also dealing with the realm of human freedom. And dealing with the realm of human freedom, sometimes people, individuals, even states and governments can misuse freedom to such an extent that it becomes an existential threat to the lives of other people, in which case there is a duty to defend life or defend the freedom of that life. For example, which is why the church also has the teaching of a just war, so that it isn't like, for instance, it is, when we were talking before we began about like the military and the defense force, like, is it moral for can a Catholic join the military? The answer is absolutely they can. Can they join they couldn't join, for instance, they couldn't join the military of I don't think of an institution or that they know to be like something that the church had pronounced against. So I would say, for example, I don't think a Catholic could be a member of the People's Liberation Army of China, because that military, it's not the army of the Chinese nation, but it's the military wing of the Communist Party. So that's so there would be an issue. But the Australian Defence Force, the name sort of says it all. It's a defence force. It's there to protect the people that live in Australia from existential threats coming from elsewhere. So actually, it may sound, it may initially sound counterintuitive, but you join the military potentially having to take life in order to protect life. And in a just war, you can legitimately go to war to, as long as the causes for the war are just, like you're not the instigator, you're not the one starting it. That the war also has a reasonable prospect of success, in the sense that it will achieve a positive outcome, and not that you're just needlessly going to send everybody to the slaughter and then there's going to be nothing left of your country. And then once you've made the decision, I've got just cause for going to war. Then I also have to conduct the war in a just way. So even though I'm fighting, I can't though go committing crimes against humanity and murdering civilians and things like that in the conduct of the war. So now if you see it on that line, this is where now the death penalty, where the church has provided for it over the course of history, has been in the defense of society. It's been where the justice systems have not been either sufficient or able to protect innocent people from the evils of other certain individuals, right? So where that is not possible, and there can be circumstances where that is, the church has allowed for the death penalty to be provided for, on the proviso that the spiritual needs of the person to be executed can be met. So, for instance, there's a real important role for example, like in a Catholic context, priests on death row. That those needs, that the person who is going to be executed by the state gets a chance to make things right with God before they go. Like that's a really important thing. Pope Francis, however, was emphatic in his opposition to the death penalty, and he did not believe there were any circumstances in the world ever where the death penalty could be justified, especially today, and that societies now, especially like the prison systems and things, and justice systems and monitoring systems, should be able to keep people free, safe enough to a degree that we shouldn't have to resort to the death penalty. Now, we see very often there are failures in that ability to protect society. So we see like it's not perfect, but is it to such a degree that we should then open up the possibility of like executing our own citizens? I don't think, certainly in Australia's case, I don't think you can make a case for the death penalty. I don't know. I don't know how people feel about this, because I know in the United States where, and this is the thing, they, in some states in America, they execute people like there's no tomorrow, especially in the South. And what they often provide for. So, for example, if it's a murderer who's committed a murderer, when they go when they go to be executed, the family of the people they've killed are, if they want to, allowed to go into a viewing booth and to sit and watch. Right now, I don't. Maybe that makes people feel better. I don't know if it's a case of justice, or even there'd be a mixture of justice and vengeance and things that would come in. So that's where the context of the death penalty comes in. It would be seen as that this person is misusing their freedom to such a degree that it is now a real threat to the lives of other innocent people. And so in order to protect these innocent people, we're eliminating the threat. You had that case, remember in Bondi, Westfield, where the guy went on the stabbing rampage and the policewoman drew her gun and opened fire on the guy and he died. Yeah. Right? Did she do something bad? No. I mean, is it a bad thing that the guy died? Well, I mean, yeah, it's bad someone got shot, but I mean, the police officer's actions weren't unjustified. Mm-hmm. So...
I've never heard it put like that. Mm-hmm. That's a great example, because I wouldn't have an issue with that either. I think she's completely justified too. Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So she wasn't, she's not there. She's not trying to commit murder.
Yeah.
She's pulled her weapon to defend people that couldn't defend themselves.
Yeah.
So her intention there is not to commit an act of homicide, purely like homicide for homicide's sake or revenges. Her actions there is, I need to stop this guy killing now, and the only way, in the circumstances that I am presented with, is to open fire with my weapon, which she did.
Yeah.
She took the only option that was legitimate for her, that was going to both protect other people but also protect herself. Because the other option would have been if she try and go in and manually disarm the person, and the risk of her then just becoming another casualty would have been extremely high too.
Yeah, that's fair. So the primary purpose then is for the protection of
so if you like, what's her intention? Her intention there is actually it's where the morality of actions are judged on three things: on object, intention, and circumstances. So object is what actually happened. What was the act happen? Intention, what was the person trying to do by doing this act? What did they mean by doing it? And then the circumstances, well, what were the other events and conditions around in which the act happened? So object and intention, there is where an act is made like either a good act or a bad act. And circumstances, they're like the volume. They can either make a good act even better or a bad act even worse, depending on the scenario. Yeah. So like that police officer, right, she pulls a gun. She's not there, oh, yes, I'll just pop somebody off. Like, I'm not here to commit murder. This guy is on a stabbing rampage. He is killing anybody that at random and at will, I must stop this. The only way I can stop this, the only tool I have of effectively stopping this guy is my firearm. And so I am in the act of shooting. What is my intention? My act of shooting him is to stop the killing. Now, if I can bring him down without actually killing him, then that's what I want to do. So the actual killing of the guy was an unintended side effect of the act of trying to stop the killing.
Yep.
So
That makes sense.
So in there, that policewoman hasn't done anything wrong. She's actually been incredibly brave. If you put it like, so that's a really high pressure, intense situation, but the death penalty is kind of like that in slow motion.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Okay. So
Where it would be provided for, but I think you would see that the nuances of that now are definitely heading towards, it's not, the principle is still there, but now we're saying the circumstances in which the death penalty may be provided for are becoming so scarce that there's practically no reason for it.
Yeah. Because because the prison systems and things that we have in place in modern day,
Or the justices, or the policing, so not just the prison system, but also like the level of policing and things like that.
limits their impact on the society around them or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, you could say like with the Wild West, like in America, where there was the chances of, you'd have murderous bandits and stuff going around, and like your ability to bring them to heel or, put them effectively into prison where they couldn't be busted out, was very sketchy. So sometimes the marshals or the sheriffs, they would use lethal force to eliminate a threat. And you'd say in those circumstances that you could make a very legitimate argument that what they were doing was not cold-blooded murder at all, but simply defense of society. So that's how the circumstances affect the fact that someone's been killed is objectively a bad thing.
Yeah.
But once again, there are the intention in which they were killed wasn't just for the sake of murder, but for the sake of protection. Then, yeah.
Okay, cool. That's actually making a lot more sense to me. Thanks, Father. I appreciate that. Well, just before I get you to sign and we finish up, there was a question that I had intended to ask every guest this season that I only asked the first one and then completely forgot. But since we're on the topic of the death sentence, the question is...
I'm not sure where this is going.
It's a real lighthearted question, but it starts off real dull. I'm really sorry. But let's just say... I don't know if this is scandalous to say. I hope it's not. Let's say you're on death row. Okay?
Okay, yep.
What's your final meal?
Oh, what's my final meal? What is my final meal? Something prepared by my mum.
Wow.
It'd be. Mum has so many meals that I really like. So I'm just going to pluck one, but it could easily be several others. She does this French style chicken called chicken chasseur, and it's like it would just be. It'd be great. So having maybe a plate of that, and then if I'm allowed dessert before death row,
you're allowed anything. You're allowed as many of your mum's meals as you like.
Okay, so there'd be that. Then maybe a glass of a good. Oh, actually, either I'd have the chicken chasseur would be there, but it's also hard to go past like a really nice steak. Too. Like nice. A really nice steak would be good, and then a good, rich South Australian red, like a good Barossa Shiraz, would be perfect, to go down with that. Nice. And then I'm a simple man when it comes to desserts. My favorite dessert is simply hot apple pie and vanilla ice cream. Like that's it. Or it could be apple crumble too. I don't mind, but either. But like that.
I love that.
I would die a happy death.
I love it. Nice. Thank you for answering that. I really appreciate, firstly, you just coming on, Father.
Oh, my pleasure.
It was so good to just have a chat with you. But then especially to talk on life. I'm sorry that we took so long. And sorry that we took so long, especially talking at the start before we got onto that. I'm so sorry. But But thank you so much for having a chat about that. I have been wanting to talk about that for so long, so I can't tell you how grateful I am that you agreed to speak about that. Thank you. And you spoke about it so beautifully too. Thank you so much.
It's been a privilege to be on. So thank you. So you've had a lot of illustrious guests. So I'm very, very, very delighted that I've been able to be on, and hopefully I haven't confused anybody and said some things that were helpful. So, but honestly, no, thanks Anthony for having me on, and for Sarah for producing there in the background as well.
Thank you so much. Well, I'll get you to sign the canvas if that's okay.
Sure.
So as with every guest, your name, your signature, and then just a message, whatever that message be. It can be a quote, it can be whatever, it can be a Bible verse,
sure,
like a scripture, passage, anything.
All right.
I'll bring it to you.
My chicken scratch.
And wherever you like as well.
Okay.
Everyone loves that corner.
The
Yes.
corner.
It
Yeah.
seems to be ages ago, like when we had Father Ben on, it was always the top. Everyone was just like in order doing it from the top. I really appreciate that everyone's spread out now, but the bottom really seems to be the place to be. Maybe it's the way I'm handing it to people. Maybe if I stood and held it. It's good to know. Next guest, I'll hold it up or something for them. And then see if they still stick to the one.
Experiment now.
Yeah. Oh, and just got a lock in for not for our next guest, for another guest.
Oh, wow.
That's very good. Thank God. That email just came through. Awesome. You're left-handed, Father.
Yeah, explains a lot.
About what exactly?
There we go.
Thank you so much.
Sorry.
Thank you. So, do you want to read out?
So Isaiah 41, do not be afraid, I am with you, I have called you by your name, you are mine.
That's beautiful. And why that?
That was, believe it or not, the psalm, got sung as the psalm at my sister's funeral. And those words have stayed with me ever. So my sister sang it. One of my other sisters said, both my sisters are professional singers. So, they one of my... at the funeral, my sister, I knew she was going to read the psalm, but I had no idea that she was going to sing it. And then when she sang it, it was just heavenly was the only thing. And those words just spoke to me and have stayed with me ever since. So,
wow. That's beautiful.
yeah.
Thanks so much for sharing that and putting it on the canvas. That's that's huge. And to like such a vulnerable part. Like I really appreciate that. Thank you so much, Father. And thank you again for coming on.
No, my pleasure.
As always, we'll end it with a reminder to everyone, and it's so fitting for this episode as well, that our life is not our own. We belong to Jesus Christ. So don't be afraid to go against the grain. God bless everyone.